these places as fast as possible, and it actually makes sense for the government to actually be involved in building them themselves.
Finally, for weather, this morning will be mostly cloudy with a few showers. More frequent showers or longer spells of rain will develop during the late morning and afternoon, with some heavy and thundery bursts possible, which may cause localised flooding. Highest temperatures of 7 to 10 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
We all need a top-up now and again. If you're pregnant, your flu and COVID-19 vaccines will give your immune system the top-up it needs to help protect you in the months ahead. Both flu and COVID-19 can cause serious illness in pregnancy, and your vaccines will help protect you and your baby. So put a vaccine appointment on your to-do list or talk to your doctor or midwife. Visit hsc.ie for more information. From the HSC.
Good morning to you. This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Donal Kavanagh with you for the first 9 till noon show of 2024, and a very happy, peaceful and prosperous new year to all of you out there. It's going to be a busy show, the first of the year, but of course we want to get your opinions, we want to get your views and your take on the news of the day, or indeed the issues that you want to raise. You can text us on 086 60 25000. You can call us on 074 91 25000. Caroline producing and taking your calls, Shannon taking your calls and taking care of social media for us this morning as well. You can also use social media. We are at Highland Radio on X, we're Highland Hub on Facebook, and comments at highlandradio.com should you prefer to use email. Of course, the text number 086 60 25000, also good for WhatsApp messages as well. As we always do, we'll take a look at the papers before we go any further. And the front of the Donegal Democrat this morning: Noreen was a very gentle, kind-hearted, considerate, warm and caring lady. Tributes have been paid following the passing of Councillor Noreen McGarvey, who's been laid to rest at the age of 52. Donegal native Noreen passed away peacefully at Donegal Hospice on Thursday, and indeed all of us in the newsroom and on the show here have had dealings with Noreen over the years, and she's been nothing less than an absolutely wonderful person to deal with. And we knew her long before she was elected a councillor, of course, because Noreen McGarvey worked very closely with Pat the Cope Gallagher, and anyone who knows Pat the Cope Gallagher's work rate will know that Pat the Cope Gallagher's office is one of the busiest public representative offices in the country ever. So anyone that worked in that office was a person who was busy, and Noreen was most certainly that. Our thoughts are with her family, and we look ahead to what happens over the course of the coming months in the Glenties electoral area, but there's time enough for the political talk right now. All thoughts are with Noreen and her family. Irish Independent this morning: landlords will need more tax breaks, says Minister. That's going to be a very popular opinion first thing in 2024. Tax cuts for landlords introduced in the budget can be further strengthened to keep good landlords in the market, according to the Housing Minister Darragh O'Brien. A temporary tax break worth between €600 and €1,000 a year was introduced in budget 2024, and Mr O'Brien says that could potentially be increased as part of budget 2025. I'm not sure how popular that suggestion is going to be among the wider populace, but we can certainly wait and see. Conversely, a housing story on the front of the Irish Daily Mail: housing crisis shows no sign of easing. 30,000 buyers for just 11,000 homes. A record number of first-time buyers are chasing the lowest supply of housing stock nationwide for more than a decade. A new report reveals there were just over 11,000 homes available to buy nationally. That's the fewest since 2012, when there were 60,000 homes on the market. Front of the Irish Times this morning: number of Garda roads officers fell as deaths rose in 2023. You'll have heard Michaela with that story on the news over the course of the morning. Also, sharp rise in schools seeking emergency funds. Records indicate just one primary school successful in securing additional funding, and we've heard several stories from schools in Donegal. Indeed, one school had its case raised in the Dáil on a number of occasions. Schools which particularly found themselves short of money because they took in refugee children, and their class sizes were considerably increased, but because this all happened after the Department of Education cut off for funding and for capitation budgets and so on and so forth, they got no extra money. Let's move on to the tabloids. Irish Daily Mirror this morning: Tubridy's right turn, or I suppose it's supposed to be return. It's not the best pun ever I've seen on the front of a tabloid paper, and we've seen some fairly bad ones over the years, let's be honest. Star back on airwaves. Ryan Tubridy will return to Irish airwaves today for the first time since the RTE secret payment scandal erupted last summer. The presenter will host a new 3-hour programme on Virgin Radio UK in London, which will also be broadcast on Dublin's Q102. The former Late Late Show star, who is 50, said, "I'm really looking forward to getting back on the Irish airwaves and to the listeners who have supported me since day one." And that's going to be really interesting. If Ryan Tubridy is doing a radio show on a UK radio station, but it's being syndicated to an Irish Dublin station, so he's going to be trying to stick in content for the Irish people who know who he is, but he's also trying to win over a UK audience, which, let's face it, despite all the hyperbole, most people in the UK don't have a clue who he is. So he is going to have to establish himself in the UK, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he actually walks that tightrope. Front of the Irish Sun is pretty much the same story. He's back on the airwaves, Ryan and Shine. And a sub-headline, Wogan's son, Dad tipped tubs for top. You can't beat a bit of alliteration first thing on a Tuesday morning on a bank holiday weekend, and it raining outside. Ryan Tubridy has been tipped to crack the tough UK radio market by Terry Wogan's son. Mark Wogan reckons Tubbs, whose Virgin Q102 show starts this morning, can emulate the success of his late father. Ooh, now that would be a tough... Will Tubridy be as big as Wogan? Don't see it. Sorry, don't see it. Could be wrong. All the best to him. And the front of the Irish Daily Star this morning, a story very close to home. Given's Christmas pain, Shay tells of heartache. It'll never be the same, says Star, after brother and uncle die. And many people in Donegal only too aware of the sadness which has befallen the Given family over the past 10 days or so. Shay losing both an uncle and a brother, and more on that story on the inside of the paper. So that's the way things are looking this morning on our newspapers. There are, stories of hope, stories of pessimism, stories of sadness, stories of joy, stories looking ahead, stories looking back. It's the start of a brand new week, and as always, it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be an interesting month. I think it's going to be an interesting year.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountaintop Letterkenny, the 2022 C-Store National Off-Licence of the Year.
Normally at this stage we'd go for a break, but I don't want to go for a break just yet because we've a gentleman in studio with us, and he's a gentleman on something of a deadline, so I don't want to detain him too long. Delighted to say that in studio this morning is Brian McDade. Brian, you are very, very welcome indeed.
Thanks very much, Donal.
Brian, the drive around, anyone in Letterkenny will have seen this wonderful colourful car driving around in recent days, and every time you see it there's a few more stickers, a few more logos, a few more sponsors. The drive around Ireland, Brian, starts this morning. Tell us about the venture. Brian, can you get a bit closer if you would to that microphone? Actually, you're a little bit too far away, so get a little bit close in there so your dulcet tones can be heard.
No bother.
Yeah.
Is that better?
That's a lot better, yeah, a lot better. So the drive starts this morning?
Drive starts this morning. I've already started. I started in Fanet this morning at 7:30.
Outside your... I saw the post actually on social media outside your dad's old office.
That's a wee personal thing, and I'll talk about it probably later on the drive, This is a kind of I'm going to be 60 in January, 11th of January, and to mark it I just wanted to do something kind of a wee bit different. I'd done the same thing when I was 40. I drove a wee Mini to Monte Carlo in memory of Eamon Harvey. And this one really probably is in memory of my mother. And I probably was thinking about her when I was doing the last one as well, So I know it's a sad time, but this is a celebration of her life and a celebration of my father's life, We go through a hard time at Christmas thinking about them. But the 2nd of January for us, we always move on to another year. Our family, the 4 boys of us, Brian, myself, Neelis, who is in Boston, and Cahill in Letterkenny, and Patter in Letterkenny.
The car, and it's interesting when you're going to drive around the country and you're raising money for Donegal Hospice, which is where the drive officially sort of gets underway with the Garda escort in a little over 16 minutes time. So we won't detain you over long, Brian. I do give you that commitment. But it's an interesting one. I was on the fundraising page last week, and at that point I think your aim was 5,500, or aim was 6, and you were on about 5.5 at that point. You must have hit the target by now.
Yeah, we have hit the target, and we've passed the target. And if everything was in, we're well over the target between donations privately. And what I've found this time compared to the last time I've done it, there's a lot of anonymous donations there, and I never know who they are, and I never know how to thank them, So we're going well on the money. And that's the hardest part that I find of a fundraiser. I hate asking for the money. So the car, as you say, is doing the talking.
Yeah.
The car is a wee car. It's 18 years old. It's a wee Toyota, and it's 186,000 kilometres on the clock.
It's also unique. And I don't know much about cars, but I know a bit about cars. But I've never heard of a Toyota Passo before.
No, it's actually made probably by Daihatsu, and Daihatsu is owned by Toyota, and it's a Japanese import car, and it come here, and it belonged to a doctor in the town, and they were emigrating to Australia, Darwin, and they put the car up for sale, and I bought the car on Facebook.
I saw that. I mean, and we are friends on Facebook, so I mean, I've been following this, and it's very interesting. I remember you put up the first picture, and I thought, well, that just looks like a slightly strange Yaris, but no, it is this very interesting model. It's an automatic as well, which hopefully will make the drive a little easier, or will it?
No, it's this. Once you get used to the automatic, and just it's not wild powerful, and mind you, I'm not that small, so it has a brave wee.
Yeah.
So it goes well. It's lovely to drive. I was coming up from Fanet this morning there, and even there were a couple of cattle lorries actually passed me, so you'll know I'm not going that fast.
So you aren't going to be breaking the speed and getting into trouble with the car along the way.
Definitely not. And it's a drive round at my ease on my own. And take in if you want to stop, if you see something, you're not. I have a timeline, but it's stretched. After this morning, it'll be stretched out. So car's going great. Paul Reid, Reid Motorsport, done a kind of a deep look at it, and he just very little had to be done. A couple of brake pipes in the back and a couple of drives and oil and filter, and that was it.
Now, I have to say, Brian, I drove from Waterford via Carlow to Letterkenny yesterday, and that was a nasty old day to be driving in now, to be honest. You've not picked the best time of the year for a drive around Ireland.
No, well, do you know this? I was coming up this morning and I left Fanet, and it was lovely, and it started to lash the rain, and I came into Milford, and at the same time, do you know this? I'm sitting in, and for me, the journey is always a part of the destination. And I enjoy driving. The car's going well, and listening to music, and it's a CD players in it, so there's a lot of old CDs with an odd scrape on them there.
Oh yeah,
I'm listening away to them, but no, I'll enjoy it, and I enjoy driving in the winter as well. It gives you a kind of a wee bit of therapy when you're driving, and when you're on your own, I find it great.
Which came first, the car or the idea?
Oh, the thing about that car, well, that car there is going up and down past my house every day, and I never even noticed it, but the idea was there. But
yeah,
I was thinking about another money, but just couldn't get one, and that wee car, once I sat on it, the very first day I went over one of the speed ramps up Glencarry, I says, this is different, this is the car.
Yeah.
So the idea was there for a long time, and it wasn't, this, I never said to anybody at all, not even my family, because they would be saying, Brian, what are you doing that for? Why bother, or what do it, but this is what I enjoy, and I enjoy taking the photographs, and I enjoy driving, so the idea is there.
And will there be some form of, I'm sure there will be, knowing you, there will be a pictorial record, most certainly, because anyone who follows you knows you get great pictures every day, but is there even the possibility of a coffee book out of this? Because you certainly have the skill to get a really good coffee book of pictures around Ireland.
Well, there'll be coffee, but there might be no book.
there's one certain establishment in town that you're pretty much keeping in business, I get the impression. Because of all the time I see you, 80% it's waving to you through a window. Yeah,
that's right. And the slash in the rain, and you're out walking, and you're enjoying it, so.
I think we're both where we want to be. There's a little part of me would prefer to be where you are, but we won't go there.
Well, no bother. No, it's very good. Very happy with it, and I just, as I say, the donations is what it's about, and it is working well, and we just want to keep it going now and get a nice, donation towards the hospice. That's what it's about.
Well, Brian, all the best with it. We'll let you go to the hospice and get your... There's a Garda escort from the hospice to O'Donnell Park, and then it's off to Leitrim via a run around Donegal.
Mind you, an odd time the guards were behind me going down the street, but today they'll be in front of me, you know. So,
Brian, I mean, as I say, anyone who's been in Letterkenny will have seen the car. It's a lovely blue car, festooned with stickers. It's been all over the place, particularly parked outside Max on the high road. Let's be honest about it. That's where you see it most.
Do you know this? I'm actually a bit embarrassed going into Max, because anytime I go in, they think I'm looking for a donation, and I'm not. You know, but that's.
Well, you've given them so much business that you won't see it twice over, Brian. Let's be honest now at this stage.
No bother.
Brian McDade, all the best with it. Oh, and by the way, in advance, happy birthday for the 11th as well.
No, thanks very much,
Brian. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We wish you all the best with the journey. People can, I'm sure, if they want to help, still do.
Yeah, we have an iDonate page, and it's easy to donate it, and there's even a wee QR code on the car.
Yeah.
Anybody sees it, they can actually take a picture of it, and it'll donate straight up.
That isn't technology. Brian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
No bother. Thank you very much, Donal.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out ShaneConleyCars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonaher Road, Donegal Town.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
And the time here on Highland Radio is 9:20. And as I say, this is the 9 till noon show. Just to let you know what the crack is with Brian. Brian started, as we said, at Fanad this morning. Now, he started, as he said, a very personal journey. It was outside where his dad used to work for the ESB. And he is now heading for the Donegal Hospice at 9:30. Gets a Garda escort from O'Donnell to O'Donnell Park, and then it's Glendone around about 10:30, Ballabafay about 1 o'clock, Loch Esk at about 2, and then he's hitting Fermanagh at about 3, drive around Fermanagh, and then County Leitrim at 7, and hopefully Brian gets a really nice run through Fermanagh as well. It should be a very interesting drive indeed. Now, we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about Portsalon Pier, because a project was to have started at Portsalon Pier over the course of the summer in order to draw down funds so that they could have the funds drawn down in advance of a deadline in October. I'm joined on the line by Mary from Portsalon. Mary, a very good morning to you.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning to you too.
Mary, a lot of plans for Portsalon, but have those plans come to fruition?
Well, that's what we're wondering. The community's kind of been left high and dry here at the minute. And back in June, there was a hurriedly called public meeting where we were told work had to start on the pier in July, and the pier would be closed to the public from the 1st of July because work had to be completed by the 31st of October in order to draw down funding under the Brexit Adjustment Infrastructure Marine Scheme. So the community weren't happy, to say the least, but we knew the work had to be done, and if this was the time frame, then we'd put up with it. So that's what happened, and work commenced, and the October deadline has passed. Work is still ongoing, but in the run-up to Christmas week, we had awful storms here, and the sheet piling that had been put up at the end of the pier has now fallen, and it's halfway into the sea. And we're wondering why the work started at the busiest time of the year, why they didn't wait, and if funding had to be drawn down, it obviously wasn't, because the work's still ongoing.
Now, we know that sometimes the bureaucracy of the way these things work tends to be that effectively money has to be drawn down, work has to start, and the work has to be finished by a certain amount of time. And if the work isn't started and finished by the certain amount of time and the money isn't actually quartered off, then the money can be lost. And we saw a situation develop, I mean, of the riverine between Strabane and Lifford comes to mind, where they had to postpone the whole project for at least a year because they couldn't get foreshore licences in time, and the money fell. So money can be lost. And it does, sometimes it does raise, the financial year does tend to go from, from January to December. So if money isn't drawn down by December, which means work has to be finished a month before the money can be drawn down, it can be very, and maybe what's needed here is a whole new funding system that actually realises that there's no point in trying to do rush jobs in the middle of October just to draw down money when you might be better off doing the job at a different time.
Exactly. And I mean, we were left with a situation where businesses were, with a fortnight's notice, basically told, well, tough, put up with it. I mean, we have Airbnbs, we have a shop over there, we have the store's bar. The pier is the whole hub of Portsown. And here we are now facing into a new year, 2024, and we're wondering, well, what's in store for us this season? Is this going to be finished? I mean, the waste of the money over there. I mean, you just have to look at the pier now and think to yourself, my God, they're going to have to start again from scratch. So they've started in July. It's now December. So they're almost half a year on this project already, and they've got nowhere. So, I mean, we're left thinking, well, how are these tenders, how do people get them? I mean, the construction firm that's over there obviously haven't a clue.
Now, and sorry, I'm going to cut across you there, Mary. We cannot make comments about any firms. We cannot, I mean, the weather is going to play a factor.
No.
I'm not an engineer. I don't know if you're an engineer. I'm certainly not. I certainly cannot stand over any comment about a company or about the quality of anything that anyone has done.
No, that's fair enough. But I mean, you just need to look at Portsown Pier now. And this is a pier, it's a historic pier. It was built in the 1850s, extended in the 1870s, when there were no feats of engineering. And here we are looking at it today, thinking, what's going on?
And the real, and from the point of view, and from the point of view, from the point of view of the business company, from your point of view, and from the point of view of local businesses, you sort of put up with losing the 2 months of August, the July, August, etc. last season on the basis that you would say, okay, we're going to lose out in summer 2023 on the basis that come the start of the season, I mean, and effectively the start of the season these days is Easter, that from Easter that by Easter 2024, we're going to have a spank new modern pier that's going to meet all the requirements and everything. So you put up with the first blockage on the understanding that you would have something in 2024 that would be worth waiting for as such. It doesn't appear that's going to happen by Easter, if at all by the summer.
If at all by the summer, So we're just wondering now where we stand and where the Portsown community stands. We just feel that we've been just treated like, oh, this is going to happen, and put up with it, and here we go again. Here's another summer now, Easter summertime, and we don't know. We were told that the county council at the time promised us that they would keep in contact with the local community. That hasn't happened. We're here and we don't know what's going on.
In terms of the local public representatives, have any of them been able to give you any idea of what's happening or what the timeframes are?
No timeframes at all. We were given that it was July until October the 31st, and that's all we got. We're now in January 2024 and we haven't a clue what's happening.
Yeah. In terms of weather, in fairness, it has to be said that the weather over the last couple of weeks, if not months, has not been conducive to work like this. It's been very wet, it's been very windy, it's been quite stormy. That's certainly not weather that's conducive to works on a pier. From that point of view, I mean, is it that we didn't anticipate the weather was going to be as bad as it was?
Well, I live beside the sea. I was born beside the sea. We know you don't start a project in the middle of the year when you're going to be coming into the worst bit of weather. Yeah. I mean, a project like Portsown Pier should be starting February time.
Yeah.
When the weather is getting better, not when we're facing into the worst bit of weather.
Well, certainly.
I mean, we know Donegal weather. Everybody knows Donegal weather. I mean, what happened over there at the pier in the run-up to Christmas week, we didn't even have high seas. I mean, those workers were like, "Oh, there's high seas," and we're like, "No, they're not high seas."
Yeah.
So
Mary,
we're just left wondering.
We are trying, Mary, to get something from Donegal County Council, maybe get one of the public representatives from the area on, just to see if they can add some illumination to the situation. Thanks very much indeed for your contribution and for letting us know what the situation is. And as I say, I'm hoping we'll be able to get something before too long from one of the local public reps, and we'll see what they have to say. But for now, Mary in Portsalon, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Donal. Thank you.
Okay, Mary, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
Harkin Fireplaces Lifford ignites the new year with a massive January yard sale starting Wednesday 3rd. Discover an impressive selection of fireplaces, stoves, electric fires, gas fires, and elegant kitchen worktops, all on sale. Don't miss out on your perfect fireplace or kitchen worktop at an unbelievable price at Harkin's Fireplaces massive yard sale from Wednesday 3rd of January.
Watson Menswear's big January sale is now on, in store and online, with great discounts across top names in menswear like Andre, Tom Penn, Rimazumo, Penguin and Tommy Bow. Don't miss out on some great bargains in the January sale now on at Watson Menswear, Main Street, Letterkenny, and online at watsonmenswear.com.
Expecting a baby in 2024? Then get to Cool Kids Sligo Winter Baby Sale with up to 50% off selected prams, pushchairs, car seats, nursery furniture and high chairs. Cool Kids Sligo, your premier destination for baby equipment in the Northwest, will take a deposit and deliver for free nationwide. Shop online at babyaccessories.ie.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. We were speaking to Mary just before the break about the situation in Portsalon. Work began on the pier there in July, and Mary and many other members of the local community not happy with the situation, particularly as damage was done to the pier in the high winds over the course of the past few days. Now, I'm glad to say we've been able to get Councillor Liam Blaney, who's joining us on the line, just to see if we can get an update. Liam, good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal.
Councillor Blaney, we spoke to you at the time that this work was being announced, and you were confident that the work would be successful, and ultimately this would be very much to the benefit of Portsalon and the community there. Are you satisfied with where this project is at the moment?
Well, I don't think anybody could be satisfied, and excuse me, Donal, I've dosed the flu on me here at the minute. I don't think anybody could be satisfied with where the pier is and the work is at the moment with the pier. But unfortunately, it was late in getting started. The bar funding had to be spent before the end of the year. That's the European funding that was got for the pier. And a short while back, there was damage done one night to some of the infrastructure had been put up there to hold on the concrete. And as far as I know, that company was let go that was doing that job. There were subcontractors on doing a job, and there was another company taking it on there. And then a week or 10 days, about a week ago there, just over a week ago, with the storms that we had and the rough seas, had done more damage to the piles that was out at the end of the pier. Now, I haven't got any update from Donegal County Council yet, but I will have later on what the story is on it. But from looking at it, I'm sure that the piles at the end of the pier probably will have to replace again. But the job, as people have seen as time went on, and the damage has been done there, wasn't going to be completed at the end of the year. Whatever funding they could draw down, the council could draw down from European funding for it at the time of the bar funding, was drawn down. And I've got a guarantee from our minister that whatever is required to complete the job would be put in place, and the job will be completed. And we were hoping to have it done well on this side of Easter. But now, after this recent damage, I don't know what the story is going to be as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
But I will be talking to the engineer later on today.
Yeah. Now, the hope of the local community would have been that, and as I was saying to Mary, the hope of the community would have been that, okay, they had to give up part of the season in 2023 over the course of the summer in order to allow the works to start. And there was a lot of unhappiness in the community at that point because of the loss of the pier and the impact that was going to have on visitors, etc. But, I mean, is there any guarantee, or can a guarantee be given to them that they will have a functional pier for the summer of 2024? Because, I mean, if they were to lose a second season because work on the pier isn't complete, it could be very, very bad news for a lot of local businesses.
Yeah, well, there was unhappiness naturally. It was until August, I think, before the work started in the pier. And there was the pier itself was closed off. The beach wasn't closed off at all from it. And there still was a small bit of activity from boats going out from the pier and that. But look, there was businesses there that was very, very badly affected by it. And we understand that. And people were annoyed, but they did realise, or most people realised, some people didn't, that it was for the betterment of the pier itself, because if it was let go any longer, that it may not have stood another winter. And unfortunately, circumstances changed, and weather dictated, and the tides dictated, and the damage that was done to the infrastructures put up there for holding on the new concrete. And there was damage done to it not once but twice. And until I get an update, Donal, and I'm not trying to be evasive one way or another, until I get an update, hopefully later on today, and I will come back to you if you want at that stage.
Yep.
And I do intend to hold another public meeting down in Port Salon, and Mary herself, after I held the first public meeting, did say a number of things not in favour of what was going on down there, and not in favour of myself either. And she went and got MEPs to write to the council to check up things that they thought we weren't telling the truth. But I don't be down there to tell anybody something that's happening if it's not happening. I tell them the way it is, and that's the way I intend to continue as well.
Given, Liam, that we have a situation where a lot of that damage happened over the course of the Christmas holiday, obviously Donegal County Council wasn't going to have been at full staffing levels over the course of the break. Is that going to create delays in getting a full assessment of the damage here, or do you believe that damage and its implications can be assessed relatively quickly?
It may be assessed already, Donal. They have consultants down there. There's somebody permanently down on the pier along with the subcontractors, and the engineer keeps close contact with him as well. So I'm hoping maybe by a short time later from now that I will get some kind of confirmation. I'm not 100% sure if they're down there today yet or not, but I intend to go over there to see what the story is, if there's people about, and to make contact with the council engineer as well, and just to see exactly what is happening, or how badly damaged, or what has to be replaced, how long it might take. And I'm still hoping with a bit of damage that's done down the pier that it still could be completed before the Easter holidays.
So the Easter deadline may still be achievable, but you wouldn't be giving any guarantees, or you wouldn't really be expecting people to take that for,
I can't give any guarantees on this stage, but I'm still very hopeful, Donal, after seeing the damage that was done there, that, although could be a lot of damage underwater that we don't see, we don't know nothing about, but I don't think it's too serious, and I do believe it still could be completed before Easter. But look, I can't, as I say, and I'll get clarification in a while, and I'll let you know exactly what the story is.
As we understand it, some of the damage was done to supports which were holding the new work in, and to piling at the end. Now, they were sort of support structures that we know were immediately damaged. Do we know yet if the actual work that was done already, that concrete that was put in place, do we know if that's been compromised, or is that really what we're waiting for?
No, I don't think any of the concrete had been in place at the time.
So there hasn't been actual work done that's potentially complicated, that we have to go back to the start. You reckon they can pick it up again? Yeah.
Anything had been done, I think, prior to now. I don't think any will have to be undone. But look, until I get clarification, there's no point in me saying here, thinking one thing and not knowing. I'll get full clarification. I'll let you aware of the full story.
And do you have a timeline as to when you're going to hold this next public meeting you're planning?
Yeah, I hope to have it maybe at the end of this week or beginning of next week. If I can get the council engineer to come down with me as well, because I think it's important that they're there to be able to answer questions that I wouldn't be able to answer. And in fairness, when I held the first public meeting, our council engineer came down as well, as did our local newspaper editor, John McAteer. They were all there that evening, and I do intend to hold this as soon as I can again as well, to allay any fears. But until I get full story, until we know what exactly the situation is, I don't think there's any point in holding it and only having half answers for people.
Right, well, we leave it there for the moment, Councillor Liam Blaney, and we will watch with interest to see what happens. But as we say, just clarification on the extent of the damage and its implication. You hope to have that very shortly indeed, and we look forward to hearing what that may be. In the meantime, Councillor Liam Blaney, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Donal. I'll be in touch with you shortly again.
Okay, Liam, thank you. Take care. And that's Councillor Liam Blaney there. And hopefully we'll be able to get some answers to satisfy those questions raised by Mary, because they're obviously very valid and very important questions. It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. If you want to make contact with us, you can text us or WhatsApp us on 086 60 25,000. You can call us 074 91 25,000. We're at Highland Radio on X. We're Highland Hub on Facebook. Comments at highlandradio.com on email, should you choose to email us. Just want to read to you a letter that's been received. Hello, Greg. My name is Susie from South Donegal. I am 70 and I don't do email or texts. I have been told I have a condition called lumbar spinal stenosis. I have had a steroid injection, but it hasn't worked. As I'm writing this, I'm in agony. I've been given painkillers, but they are no good. I'm just wondering if any of your listeners have the same condition. What pain relief worked for them, or what treatment did they get? I can't sleep for any more than a few hours at night. I'm beginning to think it's age-related, and I'm not getting much help from doctors and specialists. It's come to the stage where I can't do very much, shopping, dancing, or going for a walk, or even household work. It's totally ruining my life. Thank you for reading this letter. Now, as we say, it's lumbar spinal stenosis is the name of the condition. And Susie, our correspondent, has had a steroid injection, but it hasn't worked, and she's in agony. And really, you don't want to hear that anyone is in agony, particularly someone of advanced years as she is. So if you have had any experience with lumbar spinal stenosis, have you any advice, any perspective you can give in terms of maybe what painkillers worked? Did any exercises work? Can you point Susie in any particular direction? A caller asks, can I ask what's the law on returning items to a store? I bought a clothing item and returned it after 2 days, only to be told you can't get money back anymore, only a credit note. Thank you very much indeed. So says a caller. Now, I listened to, it may have been Dermot Jewell, I certainly listened to someone from the Consumers Association speaking just before Christmas, and one of the points they did make was that if there is not a defect in the product, a store is not under any legal obligation to take it back. Some stores will take it back and give money for it. Some stores will take it back and give a credit note, but that's the store's own policy. They are under no legal obligation to take back a product, provided the product isn't faulty. There's no indication in the message here that the product is faulty. So some stores will have a policy on things like gift receipts before Christmas, others won't. And my recollection from hearing from the Consumers Association is very much it's a matter from store to store what their response may be, and that's the best I can offer at the moment. If I'm incorrect and anyone has any better perspective on it, please do text us or call us, as we said, 086 60 25,000 or 074 91 25,000 if you're calling by phone. But that's my recollection of the situation. Now, we are going to speak to Susan Gray from Park, and you may recall that Susan has been quoted on a story that's been running today on the papers. It's a slightly separate story to this one, but we will certainly be asking Susan about the whole issue of Garda policing numbers. It's an issue we have, of course, discussed before. But we're going to talk about the driving test and the fact that 5,585 tests were lost last year because of no-shows up until November. And that seems to me a strange situation. Let's discuss this with Susan Gray, who is the founder and chair of Park. Susan, good morning.
Good morning, Don.
Susan, I know that to get a test takes potentially 6-7 months. I mean, and the waiting list in some test areas is literally stretching into 30, 40 plus weeks. The fact that there were 5,585 no-shows for tests, given that there's been a waiting list of half a year, and given that a hefty application fee has been paid, that seems to me to be at the very least highly surprising.
Isn't it just? But it's happening year on year, and we've been reporting it through the media, to the ministers, the various ministers of transport, and to the Road Safety Authority. Because the Road Safety Authority noticed this loophole, for want of a better word, back in 2013, where thousands of learners were just rolling over their permit.
Yeah.
All they had to do was apply for the learning permit to sit. No, all they had to do was apply to sit the test, pay the RSA €85, and if they didn't turn up for the test, the RSA still renewed their permit. So in 2013, the RSA and their road safety strategy then promised to close this loophole and make it mandatory by the first quarter of 2014. Here we are 10 years later now, and they're still rolling over their permits. The Irish Times did a great report in October showing that up to 30,000 learners that were on the third or subsequent permit had never ever sat a driving test. It's appalling. It just beggars belief that this is still allowed to happen. So we welcome the Mr. Chambers' announcement there after we got the latest figures from through a PQ from the Road Safety Authority. He announced there last week that when he gets the backlog of driving test waiting times down to approximately 10 weeks, which he believes will be by the middle of next year, or this year, 2024. So by June or July, he will then make the legislative changes to make it mandatory for a learner to sit.
Is it your belief that is it your belief that some people are effectively choosing to continue to drive on a provisional licence rather than take a test, and that this is a strategy on their part?
Yes, well, the figures speak for themselves. Almost 6,000 tests lost. Like in October alone, 697 learners just didn't bother to show up for their test. We're not talking about people who cancel the test and give a reason and get another test. These people are simply not showing up. And what that is creating is a bigger backlog for the poor learners that's waiting and waiting for a test. Because these no-shows, the testers are sitting in the driving test centres waiting on these drivers. They don't know they won't show up. So that test slot is gone. So we estimate like January to November 5,500. December an average of another 400. So we claim that when we get the figures for December, there's going to be over 6,000 tests it's lost because of no-shows. So this new law cannot come in quick enough. If a learner does not bother to turn up for his or her test, why in God's name is RSA continuing to renew their permit?
And the next follow-on question from that is, if there are learner drivers choosing to continue to drive on a provisional licence rather than take a test, does that now mean effectively that there are many thousands of provisional licence holders effectively driving without an accompanied driver? Because the law is quite specific with regards to people with provisional licences. You cannot drive unaccompanied. That is the law. So if there are people choosing to retain a provisional licence rather than take a test, does that suggest, certainly in the case of some of them, that they are out there on a provisional licence driving unaccompanied?
Well, if you follow the Garda updates on Twitter and Facebook, they are continually on a weekly basis highlighting that they're stopping learner drivers unaccompanied as well. And they're seizing car under the Clancy Amendment. It doesn't seem to be working, that law, sadly, because some guards are reporting 3 weeks later they're catching the same learner driving unaccompanied. They only have to pay just €125 to get the car back from the compound. So that law is not working. So the poor Gardaí are out there detecting these drivers right, left and centre, while the RSA are not helping them one iota and close it. If they close this loophole and made it mandatory for a learner to sit the test, the guards wouldn't be catching half as many unaccompanied learners, because a lot of them would have taken the time and effort to actually practice and sit for the test. And the law of averages is a lot of them will pass. They will not be on our roads so inexperienced. And the guards won't have half as much work to do on getting these, detecting these unaccompanied learners, because a lot of them will be fully qualified drivers. It's not rocket science, and yet The RSA, the figures we have, they retain €85 every time a driver doesn't turn up for their test. In 2023, they have made they have retained over €500,000 on no-shows. €500,000 on no-shows.
Yeah.
In October alone. Sorry.
Yeah, I want to move on. I'm going to move on in a moment to the whole question about the loss of members from the roads policing unit in Donegal, and it's an issue we've discussed before. I want to go back to that in a moment. Before I do, questions just come in. Do Susan and Park have an opinion on the amount of young people driving large tractors on provisional licences, and do you have any plans to campaign on changing the regulations on this?
Today is a day for these two issues, and, that other issues for another day. We have so many issues coming to our door, and we're a small group. Let us concentrate on these two for today, please.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. So let's move on to the issue of numbers within roads units, and we know that nationally the amount of road deaths has increased. We know in Donegal in 2023 the number of road deaths was 10. The previous year, 2022, it was 8. We had an increase of 2 over the course of the previous year. You believe there is a link between what appears to have been the diminution of numbers in policing units and the corresponding increase in road deaths across the country?
Yes. That's our belief. And we've only 641 valuable members in our roads policing units right across the country. It's been reduced time and time again. It's always going in the wrong direction. This year alone, we lost up until November, and that's the latest official figures that we got these figures from, and we lost 47 members from our roads policing units. Now, when we did a breakdown by county, sadly we realised Donegal suffered the most in 2023. Highest reduction in members in our roads policing units. In March, September, October and November. We haven't got the figures for December yet. Now, the next county suffering the worst is Kerry, and then Wicklow and Kildare. Now, surprisingly enough, in Mayo, when we looked at the figures, the Mayo, where the road safety authority is based, there was no reductions last year in roads policing units. Now, the Gardaí Commissioner a few years ago said that by 2020 or 2021, he was determined that we would have over 1,000 members in our roads policing units. Now, that would lead you to believe that he firmly believed that there was a huge need for this. And yet, they were just now to 641. And the government keeps saying that as more Gardaí are being trained in Tempermore, there will be ones allocated to, it will release other Gardaí to allocated or deployed to roads policing units. We've had 277 new Gardaí trained since October. We want to know, has any of them gone to roads policing units? If so, we want to break down per county. Are any that's going, are they going just to Dublin?
Yeah.
It's not fair. There should be, somebody would need to tackle this. Next year, we've had 184 this year, the highest in almost a decade of road deaths. Do we want to say next year?
The worry now,
roads policing do a valuable job.
The worry now is that there's going to be extra Gardaí sent to Dublin because of the riots of last month, and the fear is that whatever commitments there may have been there to send more Gardaí to the regions, be it for roads policing or general policing, the worry now is that Dublin is going to get an extra amount of new Gardaí and even transfers of current Gardaí in order to tackle the problems being caused by those riots and ongoing issues with regards to what's happening with refugees, asylum seekers, etc. So the fear is that Dublin may begin actually sucking up those resources, so whatever chance we may have had of seeing increases may actually be lessened to an extent.
Exactly, but if that's happening, tell the truth. Don't have our hopes up saying as more Gardaí are being trained, they will be going on to units. We will be keeping such a close eye on this, you have no idea. We will be asking for figures every single month. And thank God we have the likes of Highland and the national radio stations and the TV. Thank God we have media following and reporting on this, because this is wrong what's happening. It is wrong. 184 precious lives lost last year. Highest in almost 10 years. And yet they're taking people, the valuable members on our roads policing units. We can't get a reason, a breakdown of the reasons. Are some retiring? Are some being promoted? Are some being removed to others? We would love a breakdown, but we just can't get it. And a valuable thing people need to know as well is that figure of 641. We don't know if that's the actual figure, because we're asking now how many of those 641 members in our roads policing units across the country, how many of them are actually active members? Are they, we need to know how many out of that are actually active on a daily basis. Okay.
Susan, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. And we'll be keeping up with yourself and keeping an eye on the situation for now. Susan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, look, bye-bye, Susan. That's Susan Gray there, the founder and ongoing chair of PARC, the Road Safety Organisation. Going to take a short break. Back after these.
Shut up about your friend and what she got. Why would I waste my hard-earned money on a woman like you? You'll get exactly what you deserve for Christmas. Exactly. That's what abusers tell us. To silence us. It's all lies. You deserve to be safe. And when you ask for help, you will be heard.
If you're living with domestic or sexual violence, support is always here. Visit alwayshere.ie or call an Garda Síochána.
Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Guess what? It's now simpler than ever to look after your health with the new Gut Shot from M&S Food and the scientists at Zoe. Combining delicious taste with scientific research, it's a great way to give your gut a good dose of fibre and a source of calcium, which supports the normal functioning of your tum. And it contains over 5 billion live cultures from 14 different strains of bacteria. This is not just a gut shot. This is our ultimate gut shot from M&S Food and Zoe.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by Grant. From condensing oil and HVO biofuel boilers to heat pumps and underfloor heating, you can trust Grant to heat your home. Visit grant.ie.
Well, the forecast, Met Éireann tell us to expect a very cloudy morning with a few showers. More frequent showers or longer spells of rain will develop during the late morning and afternoon. Some heavy and thundery bursts possible that could cause some localised flooding. Top temperatures today 7 to 10 degrees Celsius in a light to moderate south to southeast wind. And that's the latest weather forecast we've got from Met Éireann. Now, caller says, I live in the Finn Valley area. The amount of learner drivers on roads every single day with no full drivers accompanying them is crazy. I see them when I am going to work. Another caller says there is a loophole left in every law to keep the solicitors and barristers happy. They must get their pound of flesh as well. They become judges, all political appointments, so suggests a caller. We spoke earlier about the pier at Port Salin, and a caller says, does Councillor Blaney not communicate with Minister McConaughey, the minister responsible? Now, in fairness, Councillor Blaney did say he has been in touch with Charlie McConaughey, and he's got a guarantee from Minister McConaughey that any extra money required to complete the job in Port Salin because of the damage that's been done to the pier, that extra money will be forthcoming. So from that point of view, yes, Councillor Blaney did say he has been in contact with the Minister and he's got that guarantee. Minister McConaughey will say he has got no function in terms of the timing of a job, and the rules are when money becomes available through Europe, you have to spend the money in a particular given period, and that in a number of cases is what's actually leading to work starting at times that some people may believe is the wrong time. So maybe there needs to be a fresh look right across the board at the tendering systems, the funding systems, the way the money is allocated, and ask the question, is this the most efficient way of spending our money? Is this the most efficient way of making sure that you're getting optimum amount of work done for the most value, for the most efficient time, etc., etc. And if we have a situation where the work is following the pattern of the funding rather than the funding following the pattern of the work, if that makes sense. As long as the work is being determined by the funding rules, there are going to be issues, I think, like this will be very often cropping up. Caller says, Donal, I'm not familiar with the pier job, but that lady says we all know the Donegal weather, but this year it's been wetter than most, so that could delay the process. Allowances do have to be made. That's just my view. And indeed, that's what Councillor Blaney did say, that the weather over the past couple of weeks has been not conducive to getting work finished, and some of the heavy high winds have been causing damage. On 2 occasions, damage was done to pilings and to supports on the pier, and indeed, if you see the pictures of the pier, it does not look like a job that's going to be finished anytime soon. Now, that said, we still know that Donegal in the winter is going to be windy. Donegal in the winter is going to be wet. Donegal in the winter is going to be cold. So whereas the weather may have been worse than usual, can you say that we expected to get mild, clement weather in Donegal that would allow building work be done on a pier in December? I'm not sure you can totally go along that line of logic. Another caller says, nothing new on council-run projects, complete disaster time-wise and money-wise. Now, I think that's probably a touch unfair, but as I said earlier, maybe it's time to start looking back at the whole way these projects are funded, the whole way this work gets done, and look at how these models work, because there are certainly issues that do need to be looked at. There is no doubt about that. Now, this is Highland Radio. We're coming up very shortly to news and obituary notices with Michaela. But before we do anything else, we're going to take a very short break. News coming up after these.
Get ready for the sale of the century at Crawford Tiles Castlefin. Unbelievable deals now on. 20% off all tiles and bathware in store. Free standard underlay with all wooden floors. Fitters and delivery service available. That's Crawford Tiles Big January Sale, now on until Friday the 5th of January. Call 914342.
Did you know that from January 2024, the contributory state pension will become more flexible?
But what does that mean for me?
And me. It means you can still claim your pension when you're 66 years of age, or you can wait and claim it at any point between the age of 67 and 70. You could receive a higher rate of pension as a result. To find out what option is best for you, visit gov.ie/flexible pension. A Government of Ireland initiative brought to you by the Department of Social Protection.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. Detectives investigating the murder of a Donegal woman in Scotland have reissued an appeal for information. 61-year-old Anne Call, who was originally from the Gweedore area, was found dead on December the 22nd. Alex Riley reports.
Detectives from the Major Investigation Team are continuing to appeal for information over a week on from the murder of Anne Call in Rutherglen, Scotland. The Donegal woman was found with serious injuries at a flat on Newfield Place at around 12:45am on Friday the 22nd of December and pronounced dead at the scene. At a press conference in recent days, Detective Chief Inspector Lindsay Waters said the force is fully committed to tracing the person or people responsible for Anne's death. Anyone who knew the 61-year-old or who witnessed anything suspicious or unusual on the evening of Thursday, December 21st and into the early hours of the following day, near to where she was found dead, is asked to contact police. Police say they've been carrying out extensive inquiries to piece together Anne's movements and the circumstances leading up to her death, including reviewing a wide range of CCTV, and they've been speaking to residents and friends of Anne.
Police are continuing to appeal for information on a Donegal woman missing from Derry. 26-year-old Anita Robinson was last seen in the city in the early hours of yesterday morning. Police have described her as being approximately 5'4" in height, of a very slim build, with long black hair tied in a ponytail, and she's understood to have been wearing black jeans, a black coat and a black jumper. Police say 2 dates of birth are tattooed on Anita's wrist, and she has a scar on the inside of her right arm. They're appealing for anyone who may have seen Anita or anyone matching her description to contact them on the non-emergency number 101. There are plans to build new reception centres for asylum seekers this year. A revised version of a white paper on direct provision is expected to be brought to Cabinet this month. More than 6 centres are to be brought on stream that could accommodate between 500 and 750 asylum seekers, according to the Irish Times. Minister of State Oisin Smith says it makes sense.
So we have 100,000 people being accommodated. The government has been really scrambling to find these places as fast as possible, and it actually makes sense for the government to actually be involved in building them themselves.
Guarantees have been given that work started on Port Salim Pier will be completed. A public meeting was told last year that works at the pier had to be completed by October the 31st to ensure funding from the Brexit Adjustment Fund could be drawn down. While works commenced in July, they are still ongoing. However, the project has been left in limbo after storms in recent weeks caused damage to the pier, with fears the works could be further delayed. Councillor Liam Blaney, however, is confident that additional funding needed to complete the works will be forthcoming.
I've got a guarantee from our Minister that whatever is required to complete the job would be put in place, and the job will be completed, and we were hoping to have it done well on this side of Easter. But now after this recent damage, I don't know what the story is going to be as far as that's concerned. But I will be talking to the engineer later on today.
Gardaí and Donegal are urging people to make road safety a New Year's resolution. They're urging people to make responsible decisions where road safety is concerned in 2024. Motorists are reminded to slow down as speed kills, ensure seatbelts are worn, never drive under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, do not use or hold a mobile phone while driving, ensure your vehicle is in a roadworthy condition, and ensure that you're visible to motorists while out walking or cycling. Weather now this morning will be mostly cloudy with a few showers. More frequent showers or longer spells of rain will develop during the late morning and afternoon, with some heavy and thundery bursts possible, which may cause localised flooding. Highest temperatures of 7 to 10 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, you can keep up to date with the latest local news on our website, highlandradio.com. Good morning. The obituary notices for this Tuesday morning, January the 2nd. The death has taken place of Lily McDermott, Margaret Naismith, Portlaw, Newton Cunningham. Lily's remains will repose in the oratory in All Saints Church, Newton Cunningham, from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock today. Funeral mass there tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, followed by interment in the adjoining cemetery. Funeral mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. The death has taken place in Glasgow of Kathleen Doherty, née McDevitt, formerly Auchtor, Kerrykeel. Remains will repose at her home in Auchtor, Kerrykeel, tomorrow evening from 6:30. Funeral mass on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock in Our Lady of Lourdes Church, Kerrykeel. Burial afterwards in Milford Cemetery. Funeral mass can be viewed on Patrick Sweeney Funeral Director's Facebook page. The death has taken place of Margaret Diver, 114 Church Street, Ramelton. Remains reposing at her home from 4 o'clock this afternoon. Funeral mass on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock in St Mary's Church, Ramelton. Burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Funeral mass can be viewed on churchservices.tv. Family time from 10 o'clock until 10 o'clock and on the morning of the funeral. The death has occurred of William Fobister, Church Road, Killybegs, County Donegal, reposing at his son's residence, Granny Killybegs, today from 12 o'clock until 9 o'clock. Removal tomorrow morning at 10:30 to St Mary of the Visitation Church, Killybegs, for 11 o'clock funeral mass with burial afterwards in the local cemetery. Mass will be streamed live on mcmmedia.tv. The death has taken place of John Sean Harper, 14 Gortacrum Road, Glenmornan, and formerly of 26 Derigold Road, Strabane and Sion Mills, reposing at his home. Funeral leaving from there tomorrow morning at 10:15 for Requiem Mass in the Church of the Immaculate Conception, Strabane, at 11 o'clock. Interment afterwards in Strabane Cemetery. Family time, please, from 11 o'clock to 11 o'clock. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Mary McDade, née McCarran, 2 Lissowen Avenue, Buncrana, and formerly of Middle Illies. Remains reposing at her residence. Removal from there at 7:10 this evening, going to St Mary's Church, Cockhill, to repose overnight. Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, with burial afterwards in the adjoining graveyard. The death has taken place of Margaret McGill, née Macaulay, Ballyboe convoy. Her remains are reposing at her home. Funeral leaving from there this morning at 11:30 for 12 noon Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church convoy, followed by burial in the family plot in the old cemetery. Family time please before the funeral this morning. Family flowers only, donations if desired to the Alzheimer's Society, care of any family member or Terence McClintock, funeral director. And the death has taken place of Paddy Kavanagh, Trillig Buncrana. Remains reposing at his residence. Funeral from there this morning at 10:10, going to St Mary's Church, Cockhill, for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass with burial afterwards in the adjoining graveyard. Family flowers only, donations if desired to the Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member. For family information and more details regarding wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Only people from the 90s will know what that sound means. I can picture it now. Back when McDonald's started cracking free-range eggs across the entire menu and internet dial-up was the only way to get online. Those few minutes wait felt super fast and it was known as the World Wide Web. Ah, the good old days. It's just one of the little changes McDonald's have been constantly making to the way we source and produce our food over the years. Find out more at mcdonalds.ie. McDonald's. Change a little, change a lot.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome back to the second hour of the 9 till noon show on this Tuesday morning. It is the 2nd of January. This is the first 9 till noon show of 2024, and a Happy New Year to every single one of you. I think we can keep on saying Happy New Year until about the end of today, and after that maybe it starts to taper off a bit. A few comments before we go any further. And don't forget, by the way, it's a Tuesday, which means we will have our Community Garda information slot a little bit later on. Garda Grania Doherty is going to be joining us in studio very shortly. But before we do anything else, let's take a few of your comments. Caller says, I passed my test a few months ago. I was stopped at a checkpoint in the Illistrin area a few days ago. One of my end plates had fallen at the back of the car. I got 2 points. You could still clearly see the fallen down plate through the back window. So says a caller. Caller says, if this government brings in any more driving laws to this country, we may park the vehicles up. Now, in fairness, I don't think Susan Gray of Park is calling for a new law. What she is calling for is a law which was promised 10 years ago to be enacted. And the law that a person who does not show up for their test can automatically get their provisional licence renewed over and over again. I mean, there's an argument that says that's not a law that's going to compromise the ordinary driver on the road. That's a law that's very targeted to a very, very specific situation. We heard a letter earlier on from a caller in South Donegal who said who had painful spine and lumbar pain. A caller says, I suffer the same pain 24/7. The doctor put me on a tablet called Targum. It's oxycodone. It's just about takes the edge off the pain. There's also a sacroiliac belt, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly, a sacroiliac belt that can help by taking the pressure off the spine. That can be got in most chemists. And something like that, perhaps it may help. It certainly is not going to be a solution. And don't forget, anything like that is never a replacement for the medicines you're given by your doctor. It's a complement or an accompaniment. It certainly isn't a replacement. But this sacroiliac belt can take some of the pressure off the spine. If that helps, by all means, try that. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. You can contact us, you can text us or WhatsApp us on 086 60 25000. You can call us on 074 91 25000. You can contact us via social media. We're at Highland Radio on X. We're Highland Hub on Facebook. Comments at highlandradio.com for our email. Now, you can look at there's an interesting story actually on the Donegal Democrat. Anyone who was at masses over the Christmas period will have heard the message from Bishop Alan McGuckian in the Diocese of Raphoe. Our world needs hope, and it's indeed covered on the Donegal Democrat this morning. Bishop McGuckian says towns and villages in Donegal are awash with drugs, and the mica crisis remains a huge issue in the county. In his Christmas message to parishioners across the Raphoe Diocese, Bishop McGuckian said those in trouble could take heart from the Christmas story. We need hope, the Bishop said. The 9 Noon Show on Highland. The time is 12 minutes past 10. If you play Highland Radio Vision Ireland Bingo, it is time to grab your books, grab your pens, and without further ado, I will hand you over to Canis.
It's time for Vision Ireland Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Tuesday the 2nd of January. You're playing on the brown sheet. The reference number is S2. It's game number 1. The numbers are 23, 44, 72, 66, 18, 64, 43, 40, 27, and finally 12. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your Vision Ireland Bingo information at highlandradio.com.
Your flu and COVID-19 vaccines will give your immune system the top-up it needs to help protect you from serious illness. A flu vaccine is recommended for you if you're 65 or over. A COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for you if you're 50 or over. Both vaccines are recommended for healthcare workers and anyone who is pregnant or has a long-term health condition. Talk to a participating GP or pharmacist or visit hsc.ie for more. From the HSC.
As we close for the Christmas break, don't forget that our digital showroom never stops. Visit imotors.ie, pick a car you like, place a deposit online through our website, and when we return on the 2nd of January, we'll have you out motoring in your new car. It's really that easy. Visit imotors.ie to choose your next car.
This is the 9 Noon Show on Highland Radio. It is a Tuesday morning. It's just approaching 10:15, which means it's time for this.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025.
It's the 9 Noon Show on Highland Radio. Delighted to welcome into studio Garda Gráinne Doherty. Gráinne, good morning.
Good morning, Donal.
And a Happy New Year to you and to all associated with An Garda Síochána.
And same to yourselves here at Highland Radio. And actually that's my starting point here, so we'll get straight into it. We just want to wish yourself, Caroline, Greg, all your colleagues here at Highland Radio, and of course your listeners, a very happy new year from us all at An Garda Síochána, Donegal. We're hoping 2024 will be a good year for everybody. We're hoping in particular that it will be a safe year on our roads, and that people will make a big effort this year to take the road safety message on board. You know, too many lives are being lost, too many life-altering injuries are being sustained on the roads every year, and some of these, a certain percentage of these certainly could be prevented. So we were last on air on December 19th because of the Christmas break. So between December 20th and today, the 2nd of January, there have been 12 drink driving related arrests within the Donegal division, 7 arrests for drug driving offences, and 6 of these arrests occurred between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, 1 drug driving and 5 drink driving arrests. So that was overnight New Year's Eve into New Year's Day across the division. And of course a number of other road traffic offences were also detected and have been dealt with over the past number of weeks. And the main offence seems to be that of speeding, number of tickets given out for speeding. So it is the time of year to make resolutions. We're all making resolutions, and I find myself at it every year. You know, I'm going to exercise more and cut down the sweets, and it never lasts till about the 3rd of January every year, but at least it's the good intention that counts, I think. But we're asking people, and it's probably not one that would come to mind usually, you know, road safety. It's usually slimming, giving up smoking, giving up drinking, whatever the case is. We are asking people this year, we all have bad habits when it comes to road safety, you know. It's time to be honest with ourselves, realise the mistakes that we do make in the road. Sometimes, you know, people may find that they are in the habit the odd time of picking up the phone, if the phone bleeps, looking at the phone. Maybe they're going too hard in the accelerator. We're asking everybody this year, please, when it comes to road safety, make a big effort this year to be more responsible. So we're asking everybody to slow down, because speed is a killer. Belt up, wear your seatbelt, ensure your passengers are also wearing theirs. Never ever drive while under the influence of alcohol and or drugs. Don't hold, use a mobile phone while driving. Ensure that your vehicle is in a roadworthy condition before travelling. You know, check the tyres, check the lights before you set out on any journey. Ensure that you're highly visible to motorists while out walking or cycling. And I think we do have a certain number of the high-vis vests still in the storeroom in Letterkenny, so if anybody wishes to call in, we'll happily give them one of those. So we're just hoping this year's a happy and healthy year for you all. We want to thank the public for their support in 2023, and we have had the public support in 2023 as we have every year. We're very grateful for that, and we're looking forward to serving our communities once again in 2024.
Thank you very much indeed. Now to a number of incidents for which Gardaí would appreciate the help of the public out there, and we're starting in Killybegs.
Yeah, so Gardaí and Ballyshannon, they're appealing for witnesses to an assault. This occurred at Main Street, Killybegs, in the early hours of Saturday, the 23rd of December, between in and around 3:15am and 3:40am. So a man is believed to have been assaulted by another man at that location. The injured man had to go to hospital. He was hospitalised to receive medical treatment for the injuries he sustained. We're appealing to anybody who may have witnessed this incident to make contact with us. We're also appealing, as always, to anybody who may have travelled in or around that area on that date and had a dash cam to make that footage available to us. Gardaí and Ballyshannon can be contacted on 071 985 8530 in relation to this incident.
Going to Ardra now, and a number of burglaries over the Christmas period in Glengesh Court there.
Yeah, these two burglaries occurred in an apartment block at Glengesh Court in Ardra. So these burglaries happened between Saturday the 23rd of December and Wednesday the 27th of December. So these apartments were vacant at the time and were reported after the fact. A window was smashed in one of these apartments. Entry was then gained. Then when the entry was gained to the building, a number of doors were forced within the building, and a door was forced into a second apartment. Nothing of real value was stolen during the course of these incidents, thankfully, but we're appealing to anybody who may have observed any suspicious activity in that area between those dates to make contact with Gardaí and Ballyshannon on 071 985 8530, and the Garda Confidential line, as with all of our incidents, can be contacted on 1800 666 111.
This is one of those incidents presumably where people that lived in those apartments had gone elsewhere for the Christmas break, and maybe it's a pointer to the need for things like timers on lights and just taking those precautions to try and, negate the fact that people passing by can see that a place is empty.
Of course, yeah, and as always, don't post and I'm not pointing the finger at anybody involved in any of these incidents, the injured parties, but as always, and I think we all have a tendency at times we want to let people know if we're going away, and we post to social media, we let people know, we make them aware of the fact that we're not going to be there. And as well as that, if there was anybody else within that apartment block that perhaps is away at the moment, or anybody in that area that's away for a number of days over the Christmas period, we would ask them just to check on their properties as well.
To Letterkenny now, and a collision that took place on Saturday of last week.
Yes, this happened on the Ramelton Road in Letterkenny on Saturday the 30th of December, shortly after 9:40pm. So a collision occurred between two cars. One of these cars then immediately left the scene. The car in question has been described as being a dark saloon style car, possibly an Audi. We're seeking dash cam footage from anybody who travelled in that area, the Ramelton Road, and as far as the Polestar roundabout or within that general area. If you had a dash cam, you were in the area, that footage could be invaluable to us. So nobody was injured as a result of that collision, thankfully. We're just asking anybody who witnessed the collision or who has the dash cam footage that we were requesting to contact Gardaí in Letterkenny on 9167 100.
To an incident now that will certainly have required, at the very least, a van, and that's something that happened on the 17th of December in Castlefin.
Of course, yeah. So this happened on Arney Road, Clough and Castlefin, quite close to the Clady Bridge there, the border. So two industrial-sized wheelie bins were stolen on Sunday the 17th of December between approximately 2:30pm and 5pm. We're asking anybody who travelled in that area between those times, if they've seen any sort of activity, suspicious activity, to contact us in Letterkenny on 9167 100. We're particularly interested in any sightings or dashcam footage of a grey or silver coloured transit van that's believed to have been in the area on that date.
To Inishowen now, and an incident in Muff on Wednesday of last week.
Yeah, so this theft occurred in Muff Village in the morning of Wednesday the 27th of December. A vehicle had been parked overnight in a car park at Main Street, Muff, and in around 11am on that date, the 27th of December, the front and the rear number plates were removed and stolen from this car. We're appealing to anybody in this instance who travelled between Muff Village in the direction of Quigley's Point between 10:30am and 11:30am who had a dashcam to make that footage available to us. And any relevant information in relation to this incident may be forwarded to Gardaí in Buncrana on 932 0540.
Yeah, and concerning that, I mean, you know, someone could be planning to use number plates for nefarious purposes at some point into the future. So obviously that's one that's important that they get detected and recovered.
Of course, yeah, that's a matter that has to be taken into consideration also in relation to incidents such as these.
To Ramelton now, and an incident last Friday.
Now, so this happened at the Back Lane Upper in Ramelton. This happened on Friday the 29th of December between the times of 5:30pm and 6pm, and I think that's something we've all done ourselves. You know, a resident in that area, they just arrived home, may have been away for a few days. They were in the process of unpacking their car, just taking their Christmas shopping and other items into the house from their car, and a bag was stolen from the car during that time period. So this bag contained Christmas gifts and sportswear. Among the stolen items was a pearl necklace, pearl earrings, 2 pairs of ladies' trainers, Asics and Brooks, and a pair of custom orthotics. So we're appealing to anybody who may have observed any activity in that area that stood out or caused concern between that short time frame. So that's between 5:30 and 6pm on the 29th of December. We're asking those people to contact Gardaí in Milford on 91 530 60. And again, as always, if anybody was in that area with a dash cam between those times, that would be invaluable to us. And should anybody come across these sorts of items for sale, also please alert Gardaí immediately.
And those orthotics, I mean, you know, they're custom, which means number one, they'll have been expensive, but number two, they're very important for someone who's in the middle of treatment, that they have access to them. And you know, the fact that they're custom made, you know, you want that to get returned as quickly as possible so the person can get the full benefit from them. Distraction burglaries, it's an issue we've discussed on the programme before, and there's been something of an increase right across the country that you're concerned about.
Well, yeah, do you know, I was chatting to Sergeant Paul Wallace, our crime prevention officer, yesterday in relation to this, and we did notice that there was a number of distraction burglaries have occurred now, not in Donegal, thankfully, but further down the country. But I mean, criminals are highly mobile. You know, these sorts of incidents can occur anywhere in the country. So we just want to remind people in relation to these types of burglaries, and maybe just to remind them to chat to the elderly members, the more vulnerable members of their family, neighbours, friends, just in relation to them, to remind them that these incidents are occurring and what steps to take to prevent them. So distraction burglars, they come to your door, they pretend to be someone they're not, just to gain access to your home and to steal your money. That's as simple as it is. They often work in pairs. One of these people may distract you at the front door while the other enters your home via rear window, rear door, while you're kept talking on the doorstep. And unfortunately, older people are frequently the main targets of this sort of crime. So in some of these recent incidents, bogus callers have impersonated Gardaí. They've called, they said they're calling in relation to a spate maybe of recent burglaries, and that they want to speak to the person and advise them in relation to home security. In other recent incidents, they have said that they are officials who are there to inspect pension cards. So look, they can come up with any sort of reason really for being there, false reasons. So in all cases, we're advising people, especially people who live alone, the elderly, the vulnerable, please be wary of strangers calling to your home. Don't open your door to anybody unless you've checked who they are and what they want. Be 100% satisfied as to their identity before you open your door. Use your chain limiter. Those chains are great on the door. You know, you can open the door a certain amount, see who's there, close the door again. It adds a wee bit of extra security to your home. Check ID where appropriate. You know, if these people are saying, I'm from whatever agency, I'm a guard, I'm from I'm an official of any sort, ask for their ID, ask them to pass it in through the letterbox, you know, so you can have a look at it. Ensure your back door is locked if you do answer a call at the front door, because regardless of whether or not you've fully opened your door or you've opened your door, you could be talking to this person at the front door, through a closed window, and while they're distracting you, their accomplice could have, you know, gone round the rear of the house. Please make sure your back door is locked if you're attending the front door. Don't keep large amounts of cash at your home. That applies to everybody, you know. Don't keep large amounts of cash in your home. Contact Gardaí immediately if you're suspicious about a caller. Take note of their clothing, appearance, vehicle registration number, and the direction of travel if possible. We understand in the heat of the moment it's very hard to remember to do these things, but it's great, you know, if we can get a description of the person, even what type of accent they had, even a small part of the registration number of their car, and they turned right when they left my drive. You know, these pieces of information to us are invaluable. So we're asking everybody again, please check in on your neighbours, check in on elderly neighbours, friends, family members. Talk to them about all types of scams, this scam, but all types of scams also, just and advise them in relation to them.
There was a time when you would have said to people, you know, if someone is claiming to be from the ESB, ring the ESB. If they're claiming to be from Irish Water, ring Irish Water. One of the problems you have now is that more and more there isn't a local telephone number to contact. And in fact, I've noticed that a lot of utilities and companies don't even publish telephone numbers at all anymore. They want you to do everything online. So from that point of view, it's getting more difficult to sort of just contact a local office and verify over the phone, as we might have advised people to do in the past. So the advice is, if you're unsure, keep that door closed, and if you're very concerned, give the local Garda station a buzz.
Yeah, and as you say, look, no more than myself, yourself, if you're ringing now to get any sort of service, really, it's a machine. You get pressed.
Yeah, it is. It's getting more and more difficult to say. And we used to be able to say, ring the ESB and double check, but you can't really do that anymore. So, but the main message is, be careful, be cautious, and err on the side of caution.
Yeah, well, if these people are on your doorstep, you're unsure as to their identity, you're just not satisfied that they are who they say they are, or you're unsure, contact a neighbour or a family member, keep them outside, keep your door locked, don't let them in, ring the Garda station, say, I have a caller at my home, I'm unsure as to their identity. The guards will happily go out, they'll speak to that person, they'll check their ID, so there are all sorts of ways, but the number one thing is, do not, don't permit entry to your home if you're not sure, if you're not 100% sure as to who this person is.
And I suppose, bottom line, if it does transpire that they're genuine, better to be a bit embarrassed than to be the victim of a crime.
Exactly. And I mean, look at, even if it's a genuine guard member, I can only speak from our point of view, our perspective. If we call to somebody's door, they are elderly, vulnerable. If they don't allow entry to the house, they look, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I want to ring the Garda station, or I want to ring my sister or brother. There's no offence taken. If you're genuine, I or any of my colleagues certainly would not mind waiting. We don't mind waiting until you've verified who we are, so don't be embarrassed. It's your safety, that's, first and foremost, that's your priority. Don't let embarrassment get in the way. Keep the door shut if you're not sure who they are. Yeah.
Finally, the Garda recruitment competition is opening again as of the 15th, and the age limits have changed.
It has, yeah. So this competition, the recruitment competition, opens to applications for those up to 50 years of age. From the 15th of January 2024. So should anybody have any queries in relation to this campaign or in relation to a career within Garda Síochána, they can visit www.garda.ie, where there's a range of information to be found there, and frequently asked questions also. Applications to join may be made at www.publicjobs.ie, and we've also, maybe in recent times, we've had people call to the station. There's absolutely no problem with that either, and sometimes it's the best way, you get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to say. But people call the station sometimes and say, I'm interested in a career within Garda Síochána, and we maybe then put them in touch with one of our trainee Gardaí that we have in the station, who have been in Templemore in recent times, and they arranged to meet with them, and they talked to them about the application process, about how they found Templemore, how they're finding the training, and sometimes that can be of great benefit also, and there's no problem. So if anybody wishes to do that, they're more than welcome to call to any of the 24-hour stations. Really would be the best stations to call to and ask, can you speak to a student trainee Garda? Yeah. And
Garda.ie or publicjobs.ie are the two websites that you will need. Grania, thank you very much indeed. It's been great speaking to you, and we look forward to doing it again, and there'll be another community information slot, of course, on the 9 till noon show on Tuesday of next week. But for now, Grania, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Donal.
Okay, that was Garda Grania Doherty there on our Community Garda slot.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025. Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Le déanaí táimid ile ag déaláil le costais arda fuinneamh. Tá ahra déanta ag a lán daoine chun an úsáid fuinneamh a laidú. Tá tacaíocht ar fáil má tá tú ag stracailt. Má tá triblód agat de bhilí a íoch leabhar le de haláthaí a luas féidir. Tá cosantaí agsúla ar fáil de chuisteméirí. Tá cáir ar fáil ó agrachtaí ar nós maps agus a lón freisin. Chun faisnéis áil, take chuig gov.ie/úsáid níos lú ó rialtas na hÉireann.
It's time to save big with the McElhinney's Winter Sale, with major savings on your favourite brands across fashion, footwear, accessories, homeware and much more. Grab 50% off selected designer brands in our biggest ever winter sale online at mcelhinneys.com or join us in store. Hurry while stocks last. Discover the ultimate experience in the spa'd orchids at the Holyrood Hotel Bundoran with our tranquil Japanese themed garden. Rejuvenating massages, Revitalising facials, luxurious spa baths, pampering body treatments, not forgetting the outdoor hot tub and sauna in our secret garden. Visit on a luxury spa day, pop in for some me time, or buy the perfect present with a gift voucher. Relax and let the spa at Orchids transport you to another world. For more, see hollywoodhotel.com.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. If you were reading your papers or watching your TV over the past couple of days, you'll have noticed that between Christmas and New Year saw the annual release of state papers. They're published after 30 years in Ireland. They're published after 20 years in England, and they offer interesting facts and insights. And the great thing now is, you know, when you get to, certainly when you're my age, you well remember the incidents that the archives are about when they're released 20 or 30 years later. I well remember what was happening 30 years ago, because 30 years ago I was here on Highland Radio reporting about them, and my guest on Zoom remembers them well. Maybe not as well as me, but he certainly remembers most of them, I suspect. Historian Dr. Joe Kelly, as always, it's an absolute pleasure. Joe, good morning.
Maidin Waya good, Donal, agus the luck déisteach, the Happy New Year to yourself and all in Highland Radio.
Good August, Joe, and Happy New Year back to yourself as well. I'm sure, Joe, from the point of view of a historian, this must be a time of year you really look forward to be able to get your teeth into documents and read up on stories that you, by and large, either remember or are very familiar with.
I'm from a generation where this process was very much happening. It was the embryonic stage, and Donal, we're of an age where you know, I teach children, they don't understand the Troubles. And if you remember, Bertie Ahern said, you know, the up the ra sing-song of the Irish soccer, and he said, look, there was nothing heroic about up the ra, and he was right, as our former Taoiseach. We remember the Troubles, we remember the death, the carnage, irrespective of the politics of it and which side one was on. It was a horrible, horrific, terrible stain on our history, and you know, you were growing through that, and to think that now we have relative peace in the sense that people aren't being killed. I grew up listening to the radio every morning as a young child, hearing about death. That's what I heard every morning, and you understand that.
Oh, totally.
That's alien to most young people, say under the age of 40. They don't understand that. And these documents, particularly with the British document released after 30 years, reveal a terrible lot about Northern Ireland and the embryonic stage of the peace process and how they were trying to bed it down, the relationship between Bertie Ahern and Tony Blair, and then previously Albert Reynolds. So the Irish papers are 30 years, the British papers are 20 years. And what's really interesting about them this time, Donal, is there's more and more documents released, because back, say, before that, it wasn't emails. Now there's emails, there's media, newspapers, cuttings. It was originally newspaper cuttings and an odd memo here and there, but there's a vast, I think it's over 5,500 pieces of information alone that had been kept under state archives up until the end of 2023. So very insightful into what was happening, for example, in 1993 and 2003. And then there's some papers for, we don't understand why, anomalies really, they turn up out of sync with the but they released them. They should have been released maybe earlier. And they're very fascinating. They're fascinating equally as much. So I don't know where you want to start.
Yeah. The fact that there is that 10-year difference, that it's 20 years in the UK, it's 30 years here. Is it a matter of you see a paper released in the UK with regards to their perspective on something that happened in Northern Ireland, and then you have to wait 10 years to see what the corresponding attitude and the corresponding response on this side was?
What they're trying to do is to bring the Northern Ireland ones down to 20 years. The government are trying to come to equal terms with the 6 counties, which is understandable. But I personally, I think 30 years is a healthy thing, because we have to realise that, and particularly we talked about the North, it's still very raw. And there's a long way to go yet. And the last thing you want is papers being released that could be inflammatory or could lead to more hurt, if that makes sense. But at the same time, the truth is the truth, and we have to deal with it. And maybe that's where we're at, development and the progress of Ireland, and particularly in relation to the 6 counties.
So some of the interesting stuff that's been coming up include indications that whereas we hailed the visit of Queen Elizabeth to Ireland in 2011 and those moments with President McAleese and all that went with it at that time, I mean, had the Queen had her way, that might have happened a lot earlier.
Yeah, I had a great admiration, I have to say this, for Queen Elizabeth. I can't say that of the present incumbent, but I can certainly say Queen Elizabeth seemed to be a very honourable, genuine, sincere woman. And one couldn't say anything other than that about her. She seemed to have a genuine interest in the relationship between Ireland and England, and that we were neighbours, and that there were hurts done, and she recognised that. And it appears from the state papers that she came here in 2011, as you point out correctly, to visit Mary McAleese, but that she'd asked previously, as far back as 1998, July 1998, could she come to Ireland? She obviously was concerned and wanting to build better relationships. But at the time, Bertie Ahern was Taoiseach, and he said, look, not this side of a general election, number one. And number two, the Irish diplomat in London, Dahi O'Cally, had expressed to the British counterpart, look, we're in the early stages of the peace process, and we wouldn't want anything to unhinge that. And so it was put, so to speak, on the merada, on the long finger, and it didn't happen to 2011. But that ties in a wee bit with the Omagh bombing. There were 29 people, including a pregnant woman, were sadly killed. You know, the biggest tragedy of our troubles in Northern Ireland. In 1998, there was a month's mind anniversary service to be held in Omagh, and the Irish President Mary McAleese and Irish Taoiseach were going to be present there, and this caused a little bit of a conflict in the diplomat. There was the British diplomat got in touch with the Irish diplomat saying, look, you're going to embarrass our Queen and our Prime Minister because they're not going to be there. And is there any way, that they could step down from this and go to a more formal one at a later point? But Mary McAleese and Bertie Ahern said, no, we're going, and that's that. So it caused embarrassment for both the Queen and the Prime Minister at the time. So it just showed that again, the peace process and the early stages of it, and how, and this had just happened after the peace process had been declared, the Good Friday Agreement. So it was very, very tenuous and precarious position for Irish diplomats at that stage, yeah.
And the peace process, obviously, we're paying a lot of attention, and the press rightly have paid a lot of attention to what we're learning about the peace process and what was happening at Stormont, what was happening in London, what was happening in Dublin, both, as you say, in 2003 and in 1993. One of the interesting things I found was the perspectives we're getting on the attitudes of some officials to Northern secretaries, and in one case, fears that the Northern Secretary might complicate and perhaps compromise the whole thing.
Yeah, that was Peter Mandel's. Yeah. It was the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, Patrick Keelty, who we know from RT, his father had been murdered, and the idea was that Peter Mandelson had only suggested that his father was a member of the IRA, and later, it's been suggested that they tried to recruit the two, Patrick and his brother, to join the IRA and get revenge attack, whatever else. Peter Mandelson had to put his 2 feet in it with Patrick. Anything can be said about him. He's a very impeccable character and would have nothing to do with that kind of sordid interaction with the IRA or anything like that. He was above that, and even his tragic loss of his own father must have hit him very hard when Peter Mandelson, this Northern Ireland secretary, not understanding the family situation, and Prince said, look, there's not a family in the north that hasn't been affected by the troubles. So despite their difficulties sometimes with the royalty, he came to the rescue there for Patrick Keelty. Patrick affirmed, look, that wasn't true, and it had nothing to do from the perspective. But unfortunately, again, things like that can be wrong things said at the wrong time, could create a lot of controversy, and that's maybe goes back to how soon should we release these papers.
Yeah. And further confirmation, as if we needed it, of the importance of Mo Mowlam to the whole peace process, and the work that Mo Mowlam was doing, both at the table and perhaps at the coffee table and behind the scenes, to make sure that a deal was achieved and it would work.
Yes, and interesting, one of the snippets I noticed in the State Archive papers was that one of the Irish diplomats got a lift in her private plane, which was hired. It belonged to Christy Burg, the singer, and Mo Mowlam's company, whatever, hired it for her use. And the Irish diplomat had to go to something with her, and he was given a lift. And so the problem was, don't pay the ferryman, But anyway, so their Christy Burg's private plane was being used for the peace process, and Mo Mowlam, a great woman. And maybe oftentimes we don't realise, again, we're off a generation, most young people wouldn't know who she was, but the sacrifice she made to bring the peace process there, and her having cancer at the time, and she still was loyal to the 6 counties, to Ireland and to England, and what she achieved was amazing. Absolutely amazing woman.
Politically at the moment, we're at a point of impasse in terms of the institutions at Stormont. The DUP are having ongoing discussions with the British government. There was some, I think, vague, lingering hope that there might have been some progress before Christmas, and a rather large financial incentive being offered by the Northern Secretary, Chris Heaton-Harris, to try and make that happen. It didn't happen. The talks will continue now into January. Is there anything can be learned by the papers that have been released on both sides over the past week that can be brought into those conversations about the current situation that can perhaps help move it forward?
That's an amazing question, and maybe beyond my abilities to respond to. But yes, I think so. For example, with Charles de Chastelan, you might have remembered him being appointed as to the independent commission on decommissioning. Yeah. And he was getting very frustrated after 3 or 4 years. And he said he'd been talking to the Irish, for example, for 6 times, and nothing had happened. And the thing we've learned from the peace process, patience is vital. And we saw that rust put an end to the gun, so to speak, and decommissioning did happen, but it didn't happen necessarily at the pace of politics. No. It happened at the pace at which institutions and the IRA and the UVF were willing to progress at. And I think that's very, very important. And I think the other thing, you see, psychologically, the Irish are very, very different from the English, in the sense that English, for example, play cricket, and they wear white trousers and white jumpers, and the cricket game is strawberry and ice creams and might last 3 days.
And end up a draw.
Yeah, and that's their culture, and it's a wonderful sport in that sense. I don't know much about it. But if you think of the Irish, the equivalent in Ireland is GAA sport, Gaelic football. And we go on and we try to hammer the hell out of each other for an hour as fast as we can.
Blood and guts on the field, yeah.
And after an hour, after hammering the hell out of each other, we shake hands and we walk off the field. Our Celtic nature is one where we want it fast and quick, and where we want the resolution right away. That's where maybe the English mind is of a longer game.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through the papers, that we've had to learn as a nation that there's a longer game here. And I don't want to be getting into the politics of it, but I think that's what Sinn Féin realised and the IRA realised, that the struggle violently wasn't going to achieve what they wanted to achieve. So then they had to have the long view, the politics of entering into politics and working towards United Ireland. And I think that's what's happening. The unfortunate thing, Donal, and I do genuinely believe that this is something that hasn't happened and should be said, is there has to be a declaration of intent to withdraw. And I think that the English need to be saying, like in Hong Kong, we're going to leave in 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. And so between now and then, you go and work it out. And I think that focuses minds. And that brings us maybe to the realisation, I don't know if you're aware, that in the 1970s, because things were getting out of hand, and the British Army had arrived into Northern Ireland, the 6 counties, the Irish diplomats in 1974, and these papers were released just there a few days ago, to look into various scenarios of the Irish government going into Northern Ireland. And what were they going to do if the British were going to withdraw from Northern Ireland? This was a very real concern in July 1974. And they came up with 3 or 4 different scenarios. And one of them was that 2/3 of Northern Ireland, or the 6 counties, Belfast together with almost 500,000 inhabitants, that they would come back into the south. It was called a negotiated repatriation of Northern Ireland. And they reckoned it would cost about the equivalent in today's terms, somewhere between 8 to 9 billion pounds to make this happen. But they felt that the British government mightn't be for it. And then the other one, which was very interesting, was they'd considered military intervention to prevent, if the English withdrew, would the Unionists and the former Stormont government try to take control of Northern Ireland, the Protestant population. And civil servants investigated that. And would our army be able to go in, and would they be able to calm matters down militarily? And the report from the government officials said, no, we wouldn't have the capacity militarily to control that situation. And that there was another idea of maybe bringing parts of Fermanagh, Tyrone, Derry, Newry, South Armagh, South Down, about a population of about 300,000, which was 40% of the population of Northern Ireland, into the south. So there was different scenarios there, but it would appear that the reception from the British government would have been relatively poor, but they were planning for it just in case. And people maybe don't realise, if we go back to the 1920s, as part of the Anglo-Irish Agreement, there was to be a border commission, which there was, and Owen MacNeill, the great scholar, the Scholarly Revolution, was on that board, and they published it in 1927, but the Irish government got cold feet. Parts of Derry were to go, massive parts of Derry were to go into the south. We were to lose parts of Raphoe and in around the Protestant populated areas of Donegal were to go back into the north. So it was to recut the border, not as it is today, and it created too much protest by the Republicans on the Irish side. No, we're not having that. And De Valera. So then that fell apart.
And the other points that have been made about that particular suggestion that a lot of Derry would have come into Donegal, into the Republic, was that the apprentice boys would never, ever give up the idea of losing the walls.
Well, that's very, very interesting. And again, that's back down. How do we progress this? And this is your question. You know, what have we learned? We've learned that we can't do this without working together and achieving it by understanding and by just being patient. And we've still a long way to go. But what I've been saying earlier, and the old maxim or statement of Neil T. Blaney, the great Neil T., says, you know, there has to be a declaration of intent to withdraw. And I think we'll only have a peace process working properly when we work towards a deadline. And that deadline must be inclusive of all traditions. You know, we're talking about multiculturalism today. Where's our multiculturalism when it comes to the Protestants and the Orange Order and, you know, the Union Jack, all that? We have to face that, and there's no ignoring it. There is a tradition on our island that would not necessarily be of the tradition I've grown up on. And so how do I respect that? I'm willing to respect every other religion and every other immigrant that comes into the country, and not be willing to accept the people that have been here for 400 years.
And you were speaking about patience, though. I mean, the reality is that in a discussion, you're not talking years, you're talking decades, realistically.
Yeah, absolutely decades. But it has to be done in a very coherent and thought-out way. And again, look, you've had brilliant conversations about this on Highland Radio because we straddled at the border. But, you know, it has to be an inclusive conversation that engages everybody and that everybody feels part of it. And, you know, we've so much more in common that we have in difference. I've said it before, for example, when it comes to the Battle of the Boyne, you know, it wasn't necessarily Catholic and Protestant. Catholic soldiers fought with King William, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
And the Pope actually said Mass for when King William won. He was delighted because it meant that it would keep the French down.
Yeah.
It was politics.
It was international geopolitics, and there was a lot more to it. We know, for instance, recently, just in the middle of last year, I still haven't got used to saying last year yet, but in the middle of 2023, saw the coronation of Charles III, whom you don't hold in the same esteem that you held his mother. I think you've made that quite clear. But at that coronation, there was several guests from the Republic went. There was several attendees. The Taoiseach was there, the Justice Minister was there. There were others there from the Republic. When the royal wedding between Prince Charles and the then Lady Diana Spencer took place, President Patrick Hillery was invited but declined.
You're landing me in it. Yeah, that's true. There was papers that showed there was reference to the wedding of Prince Charles and Princess Diana in 1981, and they had a deadline. It was July 29th he was getting married, and they had a deadline to reply or EP by the 26th, and he didn't want to go because the time was very difficult. Bobby Sands was just after dying the previous month on hunger strike, and the hunger strikes were very much to the fore, and the relationships, the Anglo-Irish relationships, were very, very poor, and so President Hillary didn't want to go. He said, "Look, this isn't a good symbol for me to go as head of the Free State as opposed to Ella and All Ireland to go to this wedding. It wouldn't. I don't think it's politically correct." And they felt that this would create a little bit of international crisis in one way. And so he didn't know what to do. And it was decided that he would eventually they would send a letter saying, look, that he had other prior engagements and that they sent an Irish diplomat. Now, that's come a long way from Michelle O'Neill, for example, sitting in the coronation, hearing I just wonder, had Bobby Sands been alive and the hunger strikers, what they would have thought, you know,
Yeah.
But Irish Taoiseach and Sinn Féin head in Northern Ireland were sitting in the coronation on top of an Irish stone that was stolen, by the way, from Donegal, the Leah File. That's what he's crowned on, by the way. The scone stolen is a stone. But anyway, that goes back to the Dana. But you would wonder what the hunger strikers and those men and women of the Troubles in the 80s would have thought of that. It's come a long, long way.
It does show where we have come. And I mean, I had a conversation. I have two children in their, shall we say, very, 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 very late 20s. And, you know, I often speak to them about what the situation used to be like. And they kind of, they have a vague knowledge of it because they did it in history in school a bit. But not quite as much as I thought they might have done. And, you know, it's amazing, you know, and I tried to explain once what Section 31 was. And they were going, what? But what do you mean? How could you do that? They just couldn't get their heads around Section 31. The reality is, for the first 5-6 years of Highland Radio's existence, we were under Section 31. For instance, I often said, for instance, the late great Eddie Fullerton. I never got to interview him. I mean, I've attended several council meetings at which he was, and I spoke to the man several times and attended the council meetings when he spoke. And it was one of my regrets that I was never able to record and put Eddie Fullerton on air. And even those days, I mean, you know, you go back, we're now talking about the very real prospect of within 18 months having a Sinn Féin Taoiseach. When I first sat in this room and read news bulletins, I couldn't even interview a member of Sinn Féin on the radio.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember there'd be a voiceover for Jerry Adams and different. But like, I don't necessarily bring it into the present, but I think we're back in the same place now with cancel culture and the hate speech law. 75% of the people of Ireland do not want this hate speech law. That's according to the reports that have been done on this, you know, finding out what people feel about this. And yet our Irish government is going ahead with it. And Sinn Féin are backing it. And this was the very same kind of law that was used against Sinn Féin when they needed to speak. And they did need to speak. And they did need to speak at that time. And they did need to be heard at that time. And by ignoring them and not listening to them during the Troubles, I think prolonged the Troubles. We have to be willing to listen to our adversaries. And because if we shut them down and silence them and cancel them, it only creates a subculture, and that's not healthy. And the beautiful thing about independent radio is people are able to speak, whether you agree or disagree. Speak and express your mind. And you know what? If you've said something wrong, then you can be corrected and you can learn and you can apologize and you can move on. That's how we grow. That's how we mature. And I'm a teacher. And my children do not come into my class pre-programmed with all the right answers. And they need to have the freedom to say the mad things in my class that sometimes are way off the Richter scale and historical tense and stuff like that. But I give them that space, and then it provides me with the opportunity then to show the facts and to redirect them. And it's only by that kind of method that you can learn and you can grow. And here we're back now in the present day. You're talking about the Section 31. We've moved on into present day where we have the hate speech laws, which are closing people down. And what'll be interesting to see in 20, 30 years' time when the government papers are released, what TikTok's government have done, what things that, you know, that's alive now in the government will be revealed, and we're going, oh, wow. Weren't we so naive not to know?
I suppose the big difference between those Section 31 and the hate speech laws is the hate speech laws is concentrating on what is being said. Section 31 was concentrated effectively on who was doing the saying, and that's the big difference between the two.
Yeah, but I don't think you could exchange there's a thin line between what, for example, Jerry was saying and what, you know, the Sinn Féin were doing it. And I mean, he needed to be heard. What he was saying was terribly, terribly important. And, you know, it's a wee bit like, again, bring it into modern times, Putin has been saying, but nobody's listening. And if you don't listen, then you won't find compromise. And I hear what you're saying, and again, look, there's no way I would tolerate hate speech by any means. And I think we have legal instruments to deal with that. Whether you're one position or another, whether you're black, you're white, whether you're gay or straight, it's irrelevant. Every human being deserves the same dignity. And if you treat a human being with disrespect, then you deserve the full rigours of the law, full stop. And so I think we can agree on that.
One question's come in from a listener, and I'm going to end it on this one because, as always, whenever you and I get chatting, I go off on tangents, you go off on tangents, and before we know where we are, we're in a completely different place to where we expected to be. But it's been a really, really interesting journey getting there, and it's always fascinating. You mentioned earlier about a declaration of intent, And, and another caller rang in to say that the late Neil T. Blaney said the same thing, and indeed you made it clear you were quoting him. Caller says, ask Joe Kelly, what are the opportunities for becoming a nation once again? Is there enough being done between all parties to discuss things like health, education, security, stuff like that? Because, I mean, and we've seen how difficult Brexit was. I mean, Brexit will be nothing compared to the discussion that would actually involve United Ireland in terms of just bringing health systems and education systems together. I mean, I'm sure there's an awful lot of people north of the border are looking at the NHS and then looking at our health system and thinking to themselves, do I really want that?
Yeah. Look, there has been conversations and in fairness to our government, people get very critical at times of our government, including myself maybe, but they have done great things, both Fine Gael, both Fianna Fáil, and other parties for that matter. There've been various invitations, for example, and deputations where they've had conversations. For example, they've taken in German diplomats that had worked on the reunification of Germany, if you go back to 1989, and there's so many insights, and where their idea was, don't be worried about the money. It's about the processes and about the procedures you put in place. And look, that conversation is happening and does have to be had. Just a simple thing. Our Garda Síochána are unarmed. The PSNI are armed. How do you merit that? Our education system. You mentioned the health system. There's a lot of stuff we can get right, but you have to have faith in ourselves and in our own ability. And there will have to be sacrifices and efforts made, and that's happening. But as we talked about earlier, this isn't going to happen overnight. And like, I'm a Republican, I would love United Ireland, but I don't want a United Ireland that's a half United Ireland in the sense that it's not thought out properly, not progressed properly, not integrated properly. And that's going to take time. And we're going to have to be bigger than understanding. There's a lot of people that are maybe geographical Republicans. They just want a 32-county Ireland and that's it. But as you know and I know, it's more than just a geographical republic. It has to be something that's very inclusive, thought out, and engages all elements of society, health, policing, education, everything to do with society. And you know what's very, very interesting? What I think is going to be very interesting now, at the moment in the 6 counties, 7% are non-nationals. 7% of the population of Northern Ireland are non-nationals. So if it came to a referendum, that 7% becomes 14% one way or the other. So it might very well be the case that it's non-nationals that will decide the future of the 6 counties with regard to the 26 counties. I don't know, but I just find that an interesting figure, and that figure is increasing every year.
It's an interesting point to finish on. Dr. Joe Kelly, it's always fascinating to have these conversations, and thanks as always for your perspective and for your input. Joe, Happy New Year to you and yours, and thank you very much indeed. Slán. That's Dr. Joe Kelly there. We're going to take a short break. Headlines with Michaela in just a few moments.
Mátá méidir cliste agat, becheartart plan méidir cliste ó Electric Ireland oil freshen. Leis an bhuiineh úsáideann tú a bhrisise síos ar bhealach mearfachas hana. Ón teas, cócaracht, sailsiú agus tuile, fáil amach an méid bhuiineh úsáideann tú. In aine thúra, an lei agus an cinál fearas atá I gceist. Ag déanamh an úsáid níos soléire agus saol níos gile. Le plan méidir cliste ag electricireland.ie. Is go méidir cliste bheith agat, téirmí agus cinílacha a bhaim.
Return, refund, recycled. Ireland's deposit return scheme is coming. From the 1st of February 2024, when you buy a drink in a bottle or can with the return logo, you'll pay a small deposit. Once you're refreshed, return your empty, undamaged bottle or can to any shop or supermarket and get your deposit back. The result? Less litter, less waste, and better recycling for Ireland. For more, visit return.ie.
Highland Radio is seeking applications for a producer-presenter to join our busy sports team. The ideal candidate will take direction from the head of sport and will be required to produce and present our main sport programmes and bulletins. Must have an interest in sport across the Northwest and be able to retrieve and assemble stories while constructing scripts for on-air broadcasts and our website. A strong knowledge of multimedia and social networks will also be required. The position is on a 4-day basis that includes weekends. Those wishing to apply should forward a CV to Highland Radio Sport, Pine Hill Mountaintop Letterkenny, F92 VW08, or email hr@highlandradio.com. The closing date for applications is the 5th of January.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by Grant. Building a new home? Choose Grant's A++ rated Airona air-to-water heat pump and Uflex underfloor heating. Visit grant.ie.
And Met Éireann tell us that over the course of the morning we can expect more frequent showers or longer spells of rain to develop into the afternoon. Some heavy and thundery bursts possible. They could cause some localised flooding. Top temperatures today 7 to 10 degrees Celsius in a light to moderate south to southwest wind. This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's 2 minutes past 11, and with apologies to Michaela for my lateness, we go over for the latest headlines.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. 19 motorists have been arrested in Donegal for driving under the influence over the Christmas and New Year period. 12 drivers were arrested for drink driving and 7 for drug driving over the past 2 weeks. 6 of the arrests occurred between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Gardaí in Donegal are urging people to make road safety a New Year's resolution. Detectives investigating the murder of a Donegal woman in Scotland have reissued an appeal for information. 61-year-old Anne Call, who was originally from the Gweedore area, was found dead on December the 22nd. More than 6 reception centres that could accommodate up to 750 asylum seekers are expected to be built by the state this year. The plans are to go before Cabinet in the coming weeks, as thousands more people seeking international protection are expected to arrive into Ireland this year. Gardaí in Ballyshannon are appealing for witnesses to an assault in the early hours of Saturday, December the 23rd. A man is believed to have been attacked by another man at Main Street, Killybegs, between 3:15 and 3:40 a.m. The man was hospitalised. Meanwhile, a man has sustained serious facial injuries during an assault in Strabane in the early hours of New Year's Eve. The man in his 40s was assaulted in the early hours of Sunday morning outside Strabane Library on Railway Street just before 2:15 a.m. Japan's Coast Guard says 5 crew members are missing after one of its planes collided with a passenger jet that caught fire. The Japan Airlines aircraft burst into flames on the runway of Tokyo's Haneda Airport. All 379 passengers and crew have been evacuated. Investigations are continuing into a weekend hit and run in Letterkenny. A dark-coloured saloon-style car is said to have fled the scene of the 2-car collision on the Ramelton Road on Saturday shortly after 9:40 p.m. There are no reports of any injuries. And homeowners are warned of an upsurge in distraction burglaries. While they have been centred in parts further down the country, Gardaí in Donegal are warning that there is a possibility those responsible can target any area. Garda Gráinne Doherty says elderly people are particularly vulnerable. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
Thank you very much indeed, Michaela.
Pro-Am Pack are hiring. Become a member of the Pro-Am Pack Donegal team. The following roles are available in our ever-growing food-to-go packaging company in Gweedore. Human Resource Manager, Environmental Manager, Warehouse and Logistics Manager, Maintenance Technician. Send your application by email to hrdonegal@proampack.com or call Pro-Am Pack Gweedore on 074 95 32790. All positions are also advertised on Indeed. Apply now.
New this week in Home Store and More. All home gym equipment, all floor lamps and all prestige kitchenware are all half price. But better hurry, because when all our half price home gym equipment, floor lamps and prestige kitchenware are gone, they're gone. Also, all 100% cotton printed duvet sets and all feather and down duvets and pillows are still half price. But when they're gone, they're definitely gone. Drop by your local Home Store and More. Visit us online at homestoreandmore.ie. Now open in Frescati Centre, Blackrock. Home Store and More. A happy home.
Hi there, can I help you? You're looking for something for the garden?
Well, I want a plant for my...
What she wants is a nice lay landy hedge, am I right?
No, what?
And a lovely big hot tub.
Your vote is your voice, so don't let someone else decide for you.
Oh, and a pair of those crouching stone lions. They'd look great either side of your front door.
Do I know you?
That's our new trainee. He's very keen.
Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to checktheregister.ie and be a voter so that it's your voice that's heard. From Comisiún Tábhachtán, Ireland's Independent Electoral Commission.
And would you like that for delivery?
Yeah, apartment 3, 6th floor.
Oh, you're going to need a crane for those lions then.
It's hour 3 of the 9 till noon show here on Highland Radio. Donal Kavanagh with you for the next hour before we hand over to John Breslin, who's going to be around the Northwest. Now, a scheme offering free contraception has been expanded since its launch in 2022. The programme has offered free contraception to women, girls and people who identify as transgender or non-binary. Joined on the line by GP Dr. Sarah Brennan. Dr. Brennan, good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you.
And a Happy New Year to you and yours as well. The main change here is an expansion of the age for which people will qualify for this scheme.
Yes, it's great to see it expanding. So it was up to age 30 and now it's increased up to age 31, which is great. So from 17 up to age 31 now.
It initially was 25, it expanded last year to 30, up to 31 now, as you say. An important one for people, particularly those who perhaps are struggling to make ends meet, and important that they do have access to contraception and important that they have access to family planning.
Yeah, of course. And with the increase in inflation, this is kind of something that might be squeezed out for people because it does cost a lot of money. It requires that you visit your GP at least once a year for checkups. And then, of course, there's the extra cost of having to purchase the medications, which are also covered under the scheme, which is great. So the consultations and the medications, and then any devices that need to be inserted, all of that is covered under the scheme.
So women, girls and people identifying as transgender or non-binary aged between 17 and now 31, if they wish to avail of this scheme, the first call has got to be to their GP.
Yes, of course. And most GPs have signed up for it. There are very few who haven't. But in the instance that GPs haven't signed up to it, they could potentially contact other practices. Or then for women who are under the age or 25 and under, could also access a service in the Women's Centre in Letterkenny, where there is a free walk-in service for young women every Monday on an evening time. So that's another option.
And that will qualify as well. Dr. Sarah Brennan, thanks indeed just for letting us know about this. It's an important one, as you say. We just want to make people aware of this. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Nice to chat to you, Brendan.
You too. That's Dr. Sarah Brennan there. And as she said, either go to your GP or there is a free walk-in facility at the Women's Centre in Letterkenny if you choose to do that instead. Just want to remind you, by the way, as we said, the Around the Northwest programme is coming up after this. At 12:30, we'll have our first Hours to Protect for 2024. And this week, Donna Marie Doherty will be looking at post-Christmas recycling. Donna Marie will chat to Teresa Gallen, manager of TT Childcare, about junk art, and Councillor Niamh Kennedy about what recycling centres that Donegal County Council has to offer. So recycling, and especially recycling in the post-Christmas period, very much on the agenda for Hours to Protect, the first of the new year. And that's with Donna Marie Doherty at 12:30 this afternoon during the Around the Northwest programme with John. Now, we're going to move on and we're going to go to Zoom and we're going to speak to Councillor Micheál Cullen-McGill-Aspig, because there was a terrible story developed over the new year, and we're going to talk to Micheál about that in just a few moments. But Micheál is a representative from the Glenties electoral area, and as we know, the Glenties electoral area and the Glenties municipal district indeed lost one of its members last week. Micheál Cullen, Majin Wa. Micheál, the loss of Councillor Noreen McGarvey, everyone, I think, regardless of their politics in the Glenties MD, is grieving this.
Yeah, it was a very difficult couple of weeks for the Glenties MD, but more so than anything for the McGarvey family. And I have to say it was something that we didn't see coming, and we've lost one of the greatest, nicest, kindest person within local government. We were talking yesterday about how we've lost 3 councillors since the beginning of 2019, and how difficult that is, between up on Ashone to outside Letterkenny to our own MD, and there was very much of a strong pulling together of the other 5 councillors, despite our differences, because that's what Noreen would have wanted. Noreen had a very special gift of not being confrontational and pulling people together, and having great ability to listen and to work hard and to also deliver. I worked with Noreen on many projects, and it was a great honour to have had that opportunity. And she will be greatly lost, and I have to say I do not look forward to our next MD meeting at all, without her being there.
And her commitment to the MD and to her constituents was such that we know she was ill, and we knew she was ill, but I certainly had no idea she was as ill as she was. But still, the budget meeting and the last plenary meeting of council, Noreen McGarvey attended online with the picture switched off, but she was at those meetings. And I certainly, and I don't think anyone really knew what would be on the cards just weeks afterwards.
Her commitment to her community was unquestionable. It didn't matter to Noreen if you voted for her or not. It didn't matter for Noreen if that community had a strong vote for her or not. What mattered to Noreen was to go out there and do what she was elected to do, and that's what she did, and she done it extremely well. And Noreen was a very private person. She chose not to share her difficulties with many of us, and that you have to respect and admire, to be honest with you. I suppose all we can do now is kind of be supportive there for the family the best we can. And it's a big, wide family, from the McGarveys to the Rogers, quite a lot of cousins and close friends. And there was different aspects to Noreen. There was a very quiet, personal, hard-working aspect to Noreen, but there was another fantastic aspect to Noreen, which was just joy and fun and laughter to be around. Because by Jesus, there was one thing Noreen could do, is make people laugh. And I'm absolutely heartbroken, and I don't want to overtalk because I'm not sure if this is my place to do even any talking on Noreen. But all I can say is that she should be terribly missed and unplaceable, because her ability and commitment was unreal, and it went very quietly, and she got work done.
Good amagat for that, Micheál. We want to speak to this morning about what happened at Mahragallon, the vandalism of a seat that's been erected in the area in memory of a local person. The mind boggles.
Well, look, I suppose this is a sad story. Well, first world sad story, but yet there's positives that come out of it. This started many years ago with Paddy Haig, a fantastic character who's no longer with us, from down in Dore, with the father or McFadden family in Dore, which would be very well known. And like that, a fantastic character. And he says to me one day when I was down at the pier, which I have a great interest in, our piers and harbours, says, "Now, Micheál, you think now for an old man like me, you'd go and get me a chair so I could sit here and look out at Ellengolan and the Shunny and Anbaw and Ishmael." And so anyway, a long story short, we went off and we secured, thankfully, to Bridge, or to, God, I forget the name of the company now in Kildare. God, Fiacre will kill me. My apologies, Fiacre and Larkin. Newbridge Memorials, who have relation here and who've been coming here since we've been 11 years of age, and he gave it to us at an extremely cheap price, and I'm grateful that Kieran Gillespie, my cousin, paid for it. And it kind of spiraled out of there that we decided that we would try to look across the Dewey to put in chairs which would allow people that would have walked them Dewey. It's a fantastic, gorgeous part of West Donegal, that they would have a resting point every 50 to 100 yards, because that big long walk, it's too long to do it in one stretch for some people. So we started off and more people came forward and we got more chairs. But unfortunately, the specific chair that was dedicated to Thomas Willie Joe, and it's only after being recently erected. Saba, we has the Saba Moor. Saba runs the ferry into Gola every year, and he paid for it because poor Thomas had just, sadly passed away. But we also had another chair there that was paid for by Charlie Mack's Taxis for an Ashoni, Joe Mulligan, and then that was vandalised. And again, where Fiacre from Kildare stepped in and replaced it. And a couple of weeks ago, we had Dolty Boyle, who very, very kindly came down from Boyle's Memorials, came down and helped me tidy up some of the stone because the writing had been washed away, with the sea salt and that. And we were talking about getting more chairs and that as well. And we didn't expect that this one here would be broken. But Carol Saylor now, who I do a lot of work with in relation to this here, myself and Carol and Saba, and he rang me yesterday to say that he was on to Fiacre about the chair because he was up for the new year, and he, the same as the last chair, has kindly says that he will replace it without a cost. And that's not cheap either. And that's very kind of a person who doesn't have to do this. He's kind enough to give it to us at a cheap enough price. But to go now and to replace the chair is fantastic. It's Bynum Tanya and give him that recognition to his company and especially his son who runs that company now, Fiacre Gramahigat. But the plan is to get more chairs. There's a number of other chairs that we have ordered. More people have come forward now saying they'd like to donate more chairs, and we would like it to be seen, but we have to talk to landowners, which is very important. We have to talk to landowners to allow us to put chairs along it, and it's for no other reason but to give people of all abilities the ability or the opportunity to walk across that Dewey and to be able to take that rest and look out on maybe their home place where they were forced off through government policy, through Gola or Nishman or different islands, because West Donegal were absolutely blessed in terms of the beauty and the scenery and the heritage and the culture, and our islands play a very central part to that. And why would we not allow people to go for them walks and have that residence points?
And as you've said, this is an initiative that's come from the community. It's come through the community. It's being funded by the community. It's being supported by the community. And these acts of vandalism are absolutely the antithesis. They're absolutely against that community spirit that is driving this initiative.
Yeah, if you look, for instance, like, and then you mightn't think much, people mightn't think of it, but the very fact that we have to go down, we have to dig out a wee found of it. Gillespie's quarry will come along and they'll give us the concrete for free. Then we have the community then that'll chip in and will raise the funds for it. Then you'll have the likes of Neil Sissy, who will maybe write a poem for us to commemorate the individual or the scenery around it, because all the chairs are the poems that are on them are in Gaelic. And that's not an easy task. And then we have to go and set the chairs in and then looking after them. Now, we can't look after them forever, but we've tried to, like I says, where Dolty Boyle was very good. And it is very much a community-led project. It's hands in the pockets and hands in the shovels by the community. Nobody else. It's not a grant that we get from government or from Cúrla Chundaigh Donegal. Not saying that we would refuse any either, but it is a community initiative, and there would be a lot of chairs needed to go right across the Dewey if that was the wishes of the landowners. And I would think and I would hope that the landowners would see this as a very positive step. And I can't thank everybody that has participated in this from the very beginning. Carol Saylor and Saba, who very much from the very beginning. Hughie Harkin as well, who put in a big slab of concrete on a number of occasions for us, right down at the seawall. Cúrla Chundaigh Donegal has done a lot of work around that area where we got access.
Yeah, I think we've just lost the audio there. Have you back?
Somebody's trying to ring me. The joys of technology. What do you call it? Probably somebody ringing me to tell me I'm radio. Yeah. But anyway, so we've done a lot of work around our piers and harbours, from Moore right into Mahargalhan and to other parts that have been neglected for many years. And seats mightn't sound like something that important, but it actually really is. It really is. It allows people to go down and find that quiet moment on their own, maybe in the heart of winter, on the height of the summer, or to maybe sit there and actually engage with somebody sitting beside them and make new friendship. And I think it's really important that we continue to try to put more chairs in to allow people that walk and that resting space, so that we can continue to enjoy our very beautiful island, our community. And I'm sorry for keep using the word beautiful. I'm totally and utterly passionate about where I'm from and how stunningly gorgeous it is. As much as I love...
I have walked it myself and I agree wholeheartly.
I know you have. And as much as I love the idea of people coming to our community, I don't want too many people coming either, and telling everybody about it. So anybody that's listened, don't tell too many people about how beautiful West Donegal is. But it is, and it's a place that you can come in, go for your walks. You can go up to Hudibugs or Shinogs or Mickey's, Jackson Glasha, Cashanor. Like, you look at Anniger now, like, we have a blue flag beach in the parish. We have a distillery, we have breweries, we have top-end foods, and you have something that myself and, I'm sorry, but going back, that me knowing had been working on in terms of developing the parish of Anniger and it becoming a branded tourist destination, more so than what the industry is doing themselves, working with Udris and with Corleconde. We have the blue flag beach, flights coming in on a daily basis, thanks to the staff down there, the distillery, the brewery, the fantastic food from Dunnymunny's to Cashanor to Cassantugan to Leo's and Tessie's. And, we have a number of beautiful glamping sites now, new one just opening up there on the Farsta glamping site, Minilekya, Sleepy Hollows. Things are really, really changing for us here, and fantastic work. But what we cannot have is people, if this is the case, come along and trying to vandalise things that we worked really hard to achieve.
Well, hopefully, ultimately what comes out of this is the story of a community working together to improve facilities, and not what's happened in this instance, and may this be an isolated incident. And I have to say, though, I mean, you were saying you don't want too many people to come. You're doing a very bad job of limiting numbers the way you've just sold West Donegal, because you want me you got me wanting to go back there next weekend.
And also recognising, that there's fantastic community groups out there doing unbelievable work as well. Costa Ferberha, right across West Donegal, from the Mahara to Ellen Hardy to Clachanila, and they're fantastic. And the commitment that they give, the hours they put in, that goes sometimes unseen, the hours that has to be recognised as well. And going forward for 2014, I just want to wish everybody a better year, because in West Donegal it hasn't been that good year, especially the ending part of it. And I just want to wish everybody well for that. Good
and the same to yourself, Micheál. Slán agus maidin. Good morning.
Your flu and COVID-19 vaccines will give your immune system the top-up it needs to help protect you from serious illness. A flu vaccine is recommended for you if you're 65 or over. A COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for you if you're 50 or over. Both vaccines are recommended for healthcare workers and anyone who is pregnant or has a long-term health condition. Talk to a participating GP or pharmacist, or visit hsc.ie for more. From the HSC.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
Join me, Marty Friel, this and every Friday night from 8 for Rocking Hits on Highland Radio, in association with Arena 7 Letterkenny. If you're celebrating a birthday or a work night out, Arena 7 Entertainment Complex has it all. Check out arena7.ie.
The enhancement to the legislation for the management of business waste means all waste collectors must now provide 3 bins to their business customers for the separation of recycling, organic and general waste, and place all customers on an incentivised price plan. Your waste collector will provide further guidance on these important changes. A message from My Waste, brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Highland Radio time checks with Expressway. Travel Route 32 from Letterkenny to Dublin when you book online and travel for less. Expressway, bringing you the time at...
It is 26 minutes past 11 o'clock on this, the 2nd of January. It's a Tuesday morning. It's the first 9 till noon show of the new year. I'm joined on the line by Paul Doherty. He's one of the founders and a volunteer at the Men's Shed in Manor, where, sadly, a quantity of oil was taken from a tank over the Christmas period. Paul, good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal.
Donal, indeed, yeah. Paul, in terms of this 600 litres of oil taken from the tank, that's no small amount of oil, and that's no small financial loss for the Men's Shed and its volunteers.
No, it's no small amount. Unfortunately, there's a tank right beside it, and which feeds a house, which houses a lady and child, and they also lost their tank of oil. I'm not sure the figure of it, but so she's at a loss too. At this time of year and the hardship and whatnot, so we're not the only ones on this situation.
Now, first and foremost, you're urging people in the area to be vigilant, and also, obviously, say if anyone saw anything happen around those two tanks, both your own and the tank serving your neighbour, to make contact with Gardaí and let them know what they've seen.
It's just a case of highlighting it. Unfortunately, it's gone, and probably there'll be no return. But if people just, keep a wee eye out and be aware of it, and I was chatting to a lot of people kind of in the area since, and we're not the only ones this has happened to recently. It's going on, and we just need to be more vigilant. I suppose to your own downfall, we a lot of goodwill towards the Men's Shed and a lot of generosity, and we didn't really even take any preventative steps like putting a fence or anything around our tank. We're still in the early stages. Mm-hmm. We hadn't even a lock on it, we probably, with all the goodwill towards us, we can overlook that. But after consulting the guards, it's something we're going to have to do now. Maybe CCTV or something like that, and putting a fence or something around our tanks.
And it's coming at a time when the importance of the Men's Shed movement and the importance of men's sheds to the mental health of many was being highlighted toward the end of last year. And I think it's fair to say that the last couple of months has seen a really strong focus on the benefits of men's sheds in communities, and the fact that the one in Manor is a fairly new initiative as well.
It's been brilliant. There's people coming here, and you see what it means to them. It's a new life to a lot of people. You can see that the buzz, there's a great buzz about the place, and people who, especially after coming out of COVID, all the restrictions, and we're opening up our doors again to people. This was there was a real feel-good factor, and it's just a pity now that this surges it a bit, but we'll move on again, and it won't deter us from what we're doing, and we'll be back.
And obviously, like many voluntary organisations and voluntary initiatives, the Men's Shed is not one awash with money. You're getting by on a very small amount, and this is going to hit you. I'm sure there's been a few cold days recently in the Men's Shed, but as you've said, the most important thing is that you are going to keep going and you are going to keep turning up.
There's been a lot of generosity and support, local people, businesses. That's what we're basically going on, and there's grants available, surely, and councillors have donated generously. And, they see the good that's been done on it, and people, they're paying us and kind, and it's just a pity. And unfortunately, I'm sure the people that took the oil knew what the effort has been done to getting us up and going. That's an unfortunate thing, and they're probably maybe in our own area and seeing it, but it didn't deter them from taking it. And as I say, too, the next door tank as well, unfortunately, is a victim as well.
Yeah. Paul, it's a sad thing to have to report, and it's good to report that you're getting the support of the community and that you're keeping going and that this isn't going to deter you. But if anyone can throw any light on what may have happened, both to your own tank and to your neighbour's tank as well, then we would ask them, as we say, to make contact with the Gardaí and to let them know what's happened. But in the meantime, Paul Doherty, we wish you well, and thanks very much indeed for speaking to us.
Thanks very much. I'd just like to thank anybody there that gave us any support through the year and getting up and running, and it's very much appreciated, and wish everybody a happy new year.
Paul, thank you, and a happy new year to you and to all involved with the Men's Shed in Manor as well. Thank you very much indeed. That was Paul there from the Men's Shed in Manor. Now, returning to the issue of road safety, as we say, it's been a new story with Michaela on the news throughout the morning. We spoke to Susan Gray from Park earlier as well. Joined now on Zoom by David Martin, and David is the communications officer with the Road Safety Authority. And David now joins us on Zoom. David, good morning. Good morning, David.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well indeed. David, the figures for 2023, not good. 184 nationally lives lost on the road, 10 lost in Donegal. The Donegal figure was up on 2022. The national figure was up, indeed, one of the highest figures in 10 years. A disappointment for an organisation whose current aim is to have road deaths down to zero by 2050.
Well, it's absolutely heartbreaking and devastating year, and the numbers are awful, but, each number is an individual family. We're completely devastated by what's occurred. You're right, the numbers are up 19% on 2022, which is very disconcerting. The numbers were kind of skewed during COVID because obviously traffic volumes were down for a year or two. But what we've seen in the last year or two is a sort of a very worrying spike in the wrong direction. If you look at the longer term trend is good, and I don't want to sound complacent, but if you look back as far 2006, say, which isn't that long ago, we had 365 deaths. So we're about half of where we were then. But the trend is wrong. It's going in the wrong direction at the moment. So it's something that we're very, very concerned with at the Road Safety Authority, and also the government and in Garda Síochána are very, very concerned about it. And it's something that we clearly will be doing everything to address over the coming months.
We spoke earlier to Susan Gray from Park. I'm sure you know Susan well yourself. In terms of the comments Park have been making, one of them is that there's been a reduction in a number of road policing units. Indeed, there's been a reduction nationally in the number of Gardaí assigned to road policing units. Is there a connection between that and the fact that we are seeing road deaths rise?
Well, that's a subject for Garda Síochána. They're ultimately responsible for enforcement. Clearly there is a correlation between driver behaviour and enforcement. There's no doubt about it. We were working on these figures over the last few days, and I was speaking to Garda Síochána, and they were giving me some of the figures that they've seen over the year. There was 7,707 arrests for intoxicated driving. That's drink and drug driving. So what we're seeing is there's been a worrying trend in the wrong direction there. Speeding, which is a really killer offence, there was something like 200,000 speeding offences last year, and 5,300 people were fined for not wearing seatbelts. We know in the fatalities last year, a significant minority of those poor people who died were not wearing seatbelts. And also, this distracted driving is an absolute killer behaviour, and particularly using mobile phones. 18,800 fines. So what we're saying is there are bad behaviours on the road. There's no doubt about it. Will enforcement help? Of course it will. We were very reassured when the government freed up some more money for in terms of camera-based enforcement in last year, and we're going to see more of that next year. But yeah. Look, we will be talking to Garda Síochána. We will be talking to the Minister Chambers. There's a lot of work to be done to address this.
A lot of discussion about potential ways of addressing it. One of the issues that was mentioned in discussions before Christmas and the new road safety bill was the potential of perhaps having different penalty point levels for different times. There was a suggestion that there'd be different levels, say, on bank holidays. Now, that isn't in the latest legislation because there's potential legal problems. One of our callers, for instance, saying there's an increase in road fatalities between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m, almost half occurring during those hours, with a particular increase between midnight and 4 a.m. And maybe questions, should there be higher penalty points between midnight and 4 than there are, say, between 12 noon and 4 in the afternoon? Are those items all still under discussion? Are they still potentially on the table?
Well, again, it's something for the government. There's no doubt about it, though. What we're seeing is a disproportionate amount of fatalities taking place at night when traffic volumes are down. That doesn't make sense at all. Also at weekends, about half of all fatalities took place last year at weekends. So it's something that clearly needs to be addressed. There was talk, as you mentioned, of introducing higher penalty points over bank holiday weekends, and that's something that's been introduced in other jurisdictions and proved to be very, very effective. It's a legal, it's a very complex legal situation, and it's something that the Attorney General will clearly have to look at. In principle, if it's going to bring down fatalities, it's something that we would endorse. And clearly, as you mentioned as well, those dangerous times, at that night, late at night, when volumes are down, and at weekends, should we look at that? I think we should be looking at everything. Everything should be on the table.
As you said, the government makes the decisions, but presumably those decisions aren't made in a vacuum. Those decisions are made with conversations, consultations, and advice from yourselves.
Yes, one of our major functions is we have a research department that does this analysis and does the deep dive into what can be done and what's going on, what are the international trends. So we will be feeding into the government on that. There is going to be a meeting early in the new year with the government, with the minister and the various agencies, and to review the year and to look ahead as to what we will be doing and what changes might be necessary over the coming months.
The Taoiseach did say recently that he was going to take a very personal interest in this as well, and he called all his ministers in for discussions and made it quite clear that he was going to be front and centre when it comes to these discussions in 2024. Do you expect that to change anything?
Well, I know our chief exec, Sam Wade, met with on Taoiseach a couple of months ago. It is very much a priority, and we welcome that. The figures are just not acceptable. They're not sustainable. And we welcome the fact that the government is a priority for the government, and clearly we'll be working very, very closely with them over the coming months.
What's the RSA's strategy into 2024? Obviously, I'm sure there'll be targeted advertising campaigns, there'll be consultations with Gardaí and government with regards to enforcement and discussions about the longer term potential for further laws or tightening of laws. What will be to the cornerstone of what you'll be doing in the months to come?
Well, one of the key things for us is to, how do we communicate with people? We see that last year, a disproportionate number of the fatalities were male. We can see that nearly 80% of fatalities last year were male. And again, an awful lot of younger cohort dying as well. The highest risk age group is aged sort of between 16 and 25. That accounted for 26% of fatalities last year. So how do we talk to those people? How do we get the message across? Young males have the sense of invulnerability. They're immortal, nothing can happen to them, and what we've looked at, we see this, typically they don't look at TV the way I would have when I was that age, so the old means of communicating with them perhaps are not going to work. So we're analysing, we're reviewing our communications campaign and really recognising the fact that it's very much a fragmented media landscape at the moment, and so we're doing a lot more on social media and other ways of communicating with this particular cohort.
Yeah, because a lot of the thought in the past would have been the best way to get to people would be to put an ad on before the news or put an ad on before the Late Show on a Friday night. And the question is really how many males aged between 18 and 25 are watching the news at 9 o'clock in the evening. And the reality these days is probably not very many. So maybe where you need to be looking is places like TikTok, is even places like YouTube and online advertising in game platforms and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. And look, we're not, clearly we continue to do TV advertising, we do radio advertising. It's not just one size fits all, but there is absolute increased emphasis now on social media and TikTok and talking to them using the media that they engage with.
David Martin, one more question, and it's an issue that was raised with us by Susan Gray, and I'm sure she's had discussions with yourselves on this as well, and that was the issue of the number of no-shows for tests, in excess of 5,000 no-shows for tests last year. That must be a very, very concerning figure for you.
It is very, very frustrating, and particularly, there is a backlog at the moment. And it's something that we are working on to try and address, and it's improving slowly. But the fact that people are not turning up for them is very, very frustrating from our point of view.
And the corollary question then that goes on from that is there a phenomenon out there which would be worrying of people who, rather than take a test, are effectively allowing their provisional licences to roll over year on year on year, and doing that instead of a test? And if that's the case, that must be very concerning to you and to all involved.
It is, and look, it's something that I know that the minister is very much aware of, and it is high on our list of priorities as well. It's a bad behaviour. It goes back many. I remember when I was a kid, there was a lot of people driving around in provisional licenses for a very, very long time, and it's something that we just can't put up with.
Suggestions that there will be legislation in place to have this tackled not too long into 2024. That's something you'd welcome, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. 100% we're working that, yes.
David Martin, will be certainly hoping that the figures in 2024 are substantially down on 2023. And again, we remind ourselves that the stated aim of RSA is that it'll be zero road deaths by 2050.
That is our ultimate goal. That's where we're going to get to.
David Martin, thank you very much indeed. That's David Martin. He's the Communications Officer with the Road Safety Authority. Now, let's look at some of your comments. And we spoke earlier to Garda Gráinne Doherty about the theft of number plates and concern that, number plates stolen from a car could be used for other purposes. Caller says there's nothing to stop you or I walking into a shop and getting number plates made. Maybe that needs to be stopped by Gardaí and the law. When you go into a shop, they should ask what's the name for the plates. It would help with this issue. Another caller says, hopefully in 2024, our government officials will start to fight for the rights of SNAs. I've been an SNA for 4 years. I've good experience. Now the department have called an SNA role Ukrainian hours. It's reviewed every 3 or 4 months, just so they don't have to give us yearly contracts. I'm giving this country 1 more year and then it's time to exit if things don't improve. Everyone gets everything when they come into the country. Leo and Martin, please stop not answering the question and start looking after the real Irish people that put you into power. Hard-working Irish people are sick of this situation. So says a caller there. Another caller says, I'm emailing to ask why a main national route between Castlefin and Liscooley has been left completely flooded across 2 lanes over the holiday period. Issues have only arisen since water mains work had been carried out, and obviously there hasn't been staff there to deal with the situation. The council did seem to be making an effort to sort the situation out, but to no avail. How there were no serious accidents on this route is a miracle, to say the least. So says a caller. Caller says, Happy New Year to Greg, Caroline, myself and all those working on the 9 till noon show. Mary, thank you very much indeed for that. Regarding the treatment of cancer patients in Letterkenny, caller says the MRI machine is broken since last week or the week before. I've had to drive 4 hours to Galway to get an MRI. I asked if I could get a private scan. I was told I couldn't, as all departments have to work together. I was on the road to Sligo on the way to Galway when they rang me to say my scan was next week. They said that Galway needed it before the 8th. It's scheduled for the 9th. They have no care or consideration. There's no humanity. And caller, all I can say is I fully appreciate and understand the frustration of having to go to Galway for MRIs and for tests and for chats with the consultants and for chats with doctors. And it's a road that very many people, yours truly included, know very, very well indeed. And we say no more. Regarding the Revenue Commissioner and Tax Office in Letterkenny, the staff are working from home since COVID. They come in for 1 day a week. They won't meet you in the office. They won't answer the phones. The national phone lines aren't answered either. They won't have a Zoom. They work via email. You send a few emails back and forth and then you don't hear from them. I'm trying to get arrangements in order since my deadline in November. I've had no luck. A security guard will accept some of the documents when you go into the office, but not all. I know lots of people are experiencing this. At the end of the day, we all pay taxes and this is a public service. So says a caller. Now, we're going to take a quick break. After the break, we will be speaking about health and wellness and New Year's resolutions.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Set yourself up for Slimming World success at Dunnes Stores. We've got a great range of Slimming World products, from sweet and sour chicken noodles for lunch to a hearty beef lasagna for dinner. All now exclusively available at Dunnes Stores. Order online for delivery or find them in the frozen aisle and save at the till with a 5 off 25 grocery voucher. Try the Slimming World range today, exclusively at Dunnes Stores. Always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next in-store grocery shop of €25 or more. Range available in selected stores only. Say hello to blue skies ahead with the Aer Lingus January sale, with over 4 million seats on sale.
Take off for less with up to 25% off all our European and British destinations. From city breaks in London, Paris and Rome to beach adventures in Malaga and the Canary Islands, there's something for everyone. Don't miss these incredible offers. Book now at aerlingus.com. Aer Lingus, you're very welcome. T's and C's apply. Sail ends January 15th. Travel between February 1st and June 13th.
Why leave all the magic moments or great scenes you've captured on your phone sitting there or in the cloud when you can have them printed at McGee's Chemist? Using the McGee's app or one of the in-store kiosks, you can upload your photos from your phone, Google Photos, Facebook or Instagram and have them printed instantly within an hour or in by 10 and ready by 5. See mcgees.ie for more details. Hold your memories in your hand with McGee's Chemist, Letterkenny.
Get ready for the sale of the century at Milford Tiles. Unbelievable deals now on. 20% off all tiles and bathware in store. Free standard underlay with all wooden floors. Fitters and delivery service available. That's Milford Tiles' big January sale. Now on until Friday the 5th of January. Call 083 091 0707.
It's time to transform your smile with the help of Blue Poppy Dental, Letterkenny and Donegal Town. Their expert team offer orthodontics, teeth whitening, implants and composite bonding all in-house. Start your journey by calling 074 97 40404 or easily book your appointment online at a time that suits you through their user-friendly patient portal. Available anytime, anywhere at bluepoppydental.com. Blue Poppy Dental and Orthodontics, Letterkenny and Donegal Town. Gift vouchers available.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by Grant. Building a new home? Choose Grant's A++ rated Airona air-to-water heat pump and Uflex underfloor heating. Visit grant.ie.
Cloud will continue to thicken and rain will become widespread. Some heavy and thundery bursts possible that may cause some localised flooding. Rain clearing eastwards later to be followed by clear spells and scattered showers. Top temperature 7 to 10 degrees in a light to moderate south to southwest wind. And that is what Met Éireann are telling us is in store over the course of the coming hours. Now, it is that time of year. Let's talk about New Year's resolutions. Do you start your New Year's resolutions on the 1st of January? Do you start your New Year's resolutions on the 7th of January after Epiphany when the 12 days of Christmas are officially over? I tend to sort of think as soon as, once we're still with the tree up in the room and before Epiphany, I sort of say, the resolutions kind of kick in after Christmas. Plus there's about 875,000 calories left in the house that have to be dealt with. But that's for another day. We're going to say a very good morning to Claire McKenna, who is a health and wellness coach. And Claire's going to discuss that thorny issue of New Year's resolutions. Claire, good morning.
Good morning and a Happy New Year to you.
And a Happy New Year to you and yours as well. Claire, I suppose we all are full of good intentions and we all know the cliches. They're wheeled out by comedians every year. The gym memberships that are bought and are enacted twice over the course of January and then are completely ignored for the other 11 months. And we all say we're going to change. We all say we're going to do the right thing. And then by about the middle of January, we're failing. And by the 1st of February, we've forgotten we ever made the resolution.
Yeah, I mean, it's the language around it. I mean, you even said we're failing. But it's all really about mindset, I think, when it comes down to it. I don't think there is necessarily a right way or a wrong way to live. When it comes to health and well-being, it's really important that we try to throw away all of that language around good food and bad food. I mean, the food that we've eaten over the last couple of weeks, gathering together with family, whether it was the work Christmas do or whether it was a bowl of Christmas pudding I brought to the TV last night. I mean, that's all part of coming together and part of enjoying the season. For us to start beating ourselves up about it now is just not a great start to the new year. And there is a lot of debate around New Year's resolutions and whether or not they're a good thing. And it is nice to harness the energy of a new year, a new start. Even if you open up a new copybook, there's a new energy of possibility to it. So yes, it's good to harness that and think about what worked and didn't work for you in 2023 and how would you like to feel in 2024. So I'm not denying that there are some positives to it, but I think for people to fall into the trap now of feeling lethargic, feeling the effects of the indulgence over the few weeks and turning that on themselves and saying, right, that's it, I'm not eating any more sugar and I'm going to pound the pavement from 5 a.m. That's very hard to sustain. It's more questions of what's working for me right now in life, what isn't, what are some small changes I'd like to make. And I always like to think, why not look at what are you going to add in rather than what are you going to take out? And that could be things like spending more time with friends and family, making sure I make more phone calls with my close friends. It doesn't have to be that you'll never eat a packet of crisps again.
I saw a meme this morning actually on social media that a friend of mine posted, and I was very taken by it. It said, this year, why not stop trying to change yourself and instead try to be yourself? And I thought, that's an interesting way of putting it. I like that.
Yeah, it's lovely because we get a lot of new year, new you. But, I mean, what's wrong with the you right now? Realistically, all of us are just doing our best. There's a lot going on in the world right now. It's the really simple things that are really, really important, like our health and spending time with the people that we love. I mean, there are some pillars to health: sleep, movement, nutrition, and taking time to rest and reflect. They're all things as humans that we need. So there's certainly areas that people might look at. Am I sleeping well? Am I focused on that? How am I eating? Could I throw in more veg? Could I cook a little bit more at home? Everybody's going to be different. People have different things going on, but also trying to take time away for yourself, whether that's booking a weekend away or a retreat or just a night away. Sometimes it's important for us to try and retreat a little bit. And that's when we can really figure out if there are changes we want to make in our lives.
Do we try to do too much too soon?
Yeah, I think so. And that's sort of what we're told, that we have to really get on board with this massive fitness plan and no pain, no gain, we hear all the time. And that's not true. We can really build small amounts of change into our days and weeks, and they will build to make a massive difference. So, you know, people kind of roll their eyes and think, no, that can't be true. But if you take the stairs instead of the lift, if you walk to the shop for your bottle of milk and come back, that over time adds up far better than if you hammer it out at a gym membership for the 3 weeks of January and then don't go again because you don't like it. If you don't like the gym, don't go to the gym. It could be swimming for somebody. It could be a dance class. It could be a walk with the dog, catching up with a friend. Try and look at it as a positive thing rather than we have to really suffer, you know, to be behaving correctly and being good, as we say.
And you reckon, and it makes sense, that a small change is going to be way more easy to sustain than a radical one.
Yeah, and I think rather than us constantly wanting to change our bodies and how we look, coming from a sense of not being happy with how we are, that's not very motivating, because realistically 3 weeks in you're like, well, maybe I don't care that much about having abs of steel. Maybe I'm running around after kids and doing pickups. There's only so much I could do. But if you're looking more from a point of view of, I want to have more energy, I want to feel strong, I don't want to have an afternoon slump, so maybe a little bit more fresh air, a bit more movement might make a difference. It's just a little shift in mindset, and it goes way more easier on ourselves. And we're told that, you know, goals have to be huge and massive. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I love to set a goal and get that sense of achievement. But I think we need to go easy on ourselves, particularly now that we're packing away all the Christmas decorations. As you say, the 8,000 calories will be gone. All those little niceties we've been wrapping ourselves up with, you know, let's go gentle into this new year, I say.
Do we need to have a rebrand in terms of not call them New Year's resolutions anymore? Because even the word resolutions, there's almost a harshness to it. Whereas if it was New Year reset or New Year rethink or New Year regeneration or something that might be more, you know, and I know there's an awful lot of said these days about branding and stuff like that, but maybe we're falling into a trap because of the way this is phrased and described, that maybe what we need is to have a new look at what it is and look at it as a time to just step back, rethink, reconfigure, and just perhaps reset some goals. That it's not just like New Year, big, huge change, ta-da, everything is different now. And the reality is, for most people, it won't be.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think reset sounds quite nice. Resolution sounds like it's some sort of contract we're setting with ourselves. Whereas there should be flexibility, even in any health and wellness routine that you have. There's going to be a week where work is going to really kick off and you might have to drop that ball, or you might have a sick kid so you don't get to that gym class that week. I mean, we have to have a certain amount of flexibility in our life and not be beating ourselves up over it. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think looking at more positive things like maybe bringing in a gratitude practice, there are so many studies to show the impact that can have, to just at the end of the day think of 3 things that you're grateful for. And it could be finding a good parking spot at the supermarket, or somebody that smiled at you in the queue as you got your coffee. It can be as small as that. And then the next day, your brain starts to look out for those things to save you time for that list later on. And that's a real lift to everyone's mood and well-being. And that's something really small and really simple, and it doesn't have that same harshness as a New Year's resolution might.
And also, if you recognise the importance of getting a smile from somebody in a queue, maybe tomorrow you'll be the one that smiles at somebody else to give them that lift.
I think so, and you never really know what's going on in people's lives. So sometimes that simple chat, I mean, I think here on the island of Ireland, we're great at that. We're great at making, small talk out and about with people. And I think it's really important to keep that connection going. Human connection is huge for our health and well-being. So whether it's making sure we're connecting more with the people that we love, because it can be hard. Sometimes you can let friendships slip by, or, just sending the odd text or voice notes we've got great at rather than the phone call or the face-to-face. So connecting with the people in our close circle is so important. But then, connecting within our community and stopping and chatting and checking in on neighbours. I mean, there are all other things we could add that we'd like to bring into the new year that would, not only lift others, but lift us too.
And you know what? If I had tried to prime you into my next point, I couldn't have done it any better, because we've received a text in from a caller, and I'm going to leave it on this. My New Year's resolution is to actually visit an elderly person in my community once a month. I set the ball rolling yesterday by calling them and telling them I was going to call around at 7 o'clock on Thursday night. That way they're expecting me and they're safe to answer the door. Loneliness is one of the biggest killers in our country. And I think that's lovely. A lovely point, and I think that's a lovely point to end it on. Claire McKenna, Health and Wellness Coach, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. Hopefully you've given all of us food for thought, and all of us some encouragement as well, that as you say, we can approach this in a very different frame of mind than we may have done before, and that's a frame of mind that's going to give us all the more chance of really, really changing ourselves, changing our surroundings, changing our communities, and being better people as a result. Thank you very much indeed, Claire.
Thank you so much, and I wish you and your listeners a fantastic 2024.
And you and yours as well, Claire. Thank you. That's Claire there, a health and wellness coach. A few comments before we go. We were speaking earlier about Terry Wogan's son, saying he believed Tubridy would go the whole way. Well, caller says Terry had his togs. That was Terry's old geezers and gals. But Tubbs will have his dubs and the tub rub, as someone had to make way for his show. I did dip in and out. 2 extra hours of music. Interesting choice of first songs. Pride and Green Grass. I did catch Russell Crowe in mid-party. Sounded like he didn't want to talk, but he did mention the Northwest and Mass Putching. Muff Whiskey were the last words he said. If he were smart, he'd had Murren Bradley on with those Ballabafay blues, fresh from the Hootenanny, and I will absolutely endorse that last comment. Obviously, I didn't get to hear any of Ryan Tubridy's programme this morning because I was somewhat doing the same thing myself, but Murren Bradley. And did you see the Hootenanny the other night? How amazing was that? Absolutely brilliant. Can't say anything else, but it was just stunning. So, and so glad to be able to say that, for many people, the Monday night sessions on Highland were the first time they heard of them. And Paul just put up a very interesting post this morning where Paul just played a little bit where Murren said, I do have something coming up on TV soon, but I can't really talk about it at the moment. How stunning was that? Brilliant. What a point went on. It's coming to the end of the show, so thank you very much indeed for all your calls, for your texts. Thanks to Caroline and to Shannon for all their help. Thanks to all our contributors. Most of all, thank you to you for listening. John's up next around the Northwest, but for myself, Donal Kavanagh, have a very, very good day.
I have the right to make decisions that matter to me.
Decisions about my money, my property, where I live.
Decisions about care and medical treatment.